Okay, as folks begin filtering in, we're live. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, folks, sorry about that. I had a quick delay. We're going to be asking tonight, is the GOP rooting for President Biden to fail? We talked about this earlier in one of my previous broadcasts. We're going to ask that tonight. Do you believe the GOP is actually rooting for a failed Biden presidency? Good afternoon, or good evening rather, devilishly witty. Welcome back. Welcome back indeed. So do you believe that the GOP, essentially, or perhaps in hopes of getting President Trump back in office, would be rooting for a failed GOP? Biden is failing all by himself, says it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I love the name. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. No, we're not here to discuss whether Biden is succeeding or not. I mean, make no mistake about it, there are plenty of flaws in the Biden administration. We understand that. But that doesn't mean that you do not have to root for him to succeed. Keep in mind, under the Trump administration, when it appeared that the poll numbers were showing that he was going to lose, well, if you're down with MAGA, you still supported Trump. So that's what we're asking. Ashton Culbertson, you're saying a war. What do you mean by that? Do you think America and Russia will get into asses? Or you said, do I believe America and Russia will get into a major military conflict? The answer is no. I do believe mutually assured destruction still has some power to it. So that's my point. Good evening, Don. Don says, let's party. Good evening, Don. How are you? Looking at the comments, you guys came here pretty quick. The King of Zamunda. Okay. All right, Hannibal. You see that right here? Fair enough. Biden is failing pretty good all by himself. Mark Winter, look, I'm asking a question. Do you believe the GOP is rooting for a Biden failure? The idea, the notion that Biden is failing on his own, okay, that's fair enough. If you don't believe the Biden presidency is succeeding and you believe they're failing, that's fine. Hell, I don't believe they're succeeding right now. I believe that the Trump presidency, certainly up to this point, was far more successful, far more effective at running this country than Biden. But that is not the question. The question is, do you believe, or better yet, is the GOP rooting for a failed presidency? Doesn't matter whether it's failing or not. Are they rooting for that? How do you think the Democratic Party felt about Trump during this term? Once again, that is a diversion. You're still not answering the question there, Mark Winter. But in regards to answering your question, because this is a no snowflake zone, we do not run from questions here, although some of our guests might. The Democrats, particularly among the constituents, were certainly not in favor of Trump succeeding. Remember, there were folks like the Joy Behars that threatened to lead a whole damn country. I believe Whoopi Goldberg may have said something like that as well, but there were several liberals that were saying if Trump won, they would lead the country, and folks were on MSNBC. I believe a reporter on MSNBC actually broke down in tears. So in regards to the question you asked me, do I believe liberals wanted Trump to succeed? No, I do not. But the question we're asking here, which I'm having a little difficult time from my snowflakeless audience, that's where I think I typically am, in an audience where there's no snowflakes. Do you believe the GOP is rooting for a failed Biden campaign or Biden administration? Once again, here's another one. RBH629, his agenda is flawed. Why would we root for him? Okay, fair enough. In regards to suggesting that Biden's agenda is flawed, elaborate on that. Give me some portions of his agenda and give me your spiel. And I don't think that's a bad answer, by the way, either. Give me your spiel on what you believe about the Biden administration is flawed. Looking at the comments a little bit further, absolutely, says Jess J. So you do believe the GOP is rooting for a failed Biden campaign. Fair enough. Don, when the president succeeds, we all win, but I can't see him reversing the damage already done. I like that comment. In fact, I agree with a lot. I agree with that. I was going to say I agree with a lot of it, but revising that comment, I agree with that totally. Certainly I believe that when the president succeeds, we all succeed. I don't believe that any patriotic American, and I know in this audience, this is the audience where you go when you want to find a host of patriots right here, right now. This audience, I want to tell you, I don't believe it's patriotic to root for your commander-in-chief to not succeed. Like what Don just suggested, when the president succeeds, we all succeed. However, to top off his comment, he stated, I don't believe Biden can undo the amount of damage he's caused at this point. I am in the same camp as that, particularly because once the midterms hit and everyone expects it to go to the right, we expect the Republicans to probably end up in control of both the House and the Senate. He certainly isn't going to be able to enact any type of legislation to undo anything he's done. Do you believe Biden is a hack? Major Wood. No, I do not believe Biden is a hack. Not at all. Wish they would have kept the promise. Wish they would have kept that promise to leave, and that came from Bev Seaman. Well, there are folks who suggested the same thing if Biden got elected too. There are folks who suggested they would do some wild and crazy shit if Biden got elected. So it is what it is. Some folks just cannot stomach the idea of their political opposition leading the country. My guess is come 2024, if Trump doesn't win, there's going to be a hell of a lot of angry MAGA out there. And that's not to say that look, yours truly, your humble correspondent, I do not believe President Biden will run again in 2024. But make no mistake about it, if you are deeply invested in Trump, and you know the audience I'm talking to, my favorite audience, if you are deeply invested in President Trump, you're not going to be extremely ecstatic with anyone else winning other than Trump. Even if it's Ron DeSantis, you'll be like, okay, we can certainly tolerate Ron DeSantis. We're down with him. But keep in mind, particularly from the right, certainly in MAGA's camp, Trump was an enjoyable candidate. He is someone who is fun to watch, enjoyable to listen to. The insults and things like that, whereas us liberals hate, you guys take a lot of pleasure in that. You're not going to get that from DeSantis. My guess is you'll find DeSantis, although legislatively you'll like him, in terms of just his boisterousness, the way he talks and things like that, you will find him to be considerably more boring than Trump. Looking here. He says he will run in 2024. Go Blue, says Greg 96902. To be honest with you, I don't even know if fucking Trump is going to run in 2024. He hasn't even announced it yet. Anything is possible, but I personally, if as a betting man, I would be willing to bet 2-1 odds that Biden does not run in 2024. I feel that confident about it. I would be willing to bet 2-1 odds that Biden does not run. Pence 2024. Welcome back. Let's say Crystal the North, frequent viewer of the program. I don't think there is anyone even on the right, unless they live in the state of Indiana, that wants Pence to run. Don, you started out with the party favors. Much love, my brother. Much love. I would take DeSantis. There's a few others I would vote for. Mark Winter, if it really came down to it, I'm certain that there's a bunch of others you'd vote for as opposed to Joe Biden. If you lean right, Joe Biden is literally the worst option you can get. So I understand that. But I do believe that Ron DeSantis, and certainly anything on down the line, the Governor Kemps, Chris Christie's, and all of those types, would be far more boring than Trump. They would not have the energetic rallies like Trump. They would not host as many rallies as Trump. Trump enjoys speaking to you guys just like I do. I prefer talking to MAGA. I make no secret about that. My preferred audience is MAGA. I just fucking love talking to MAGA despite my name. And Trump loves it 100 times more than me. I don't know about Ron DeSantis. The rest of these folks are what you guys refer to as typical politicians. They're going to run and they're going to do what it takes to get elected, and they're going to stop and cut it off at that because they are smart enough to realize if you keep talking, just like in an interrogation with police, the more you talk, the more harmful it can be. They're going to talk enough to get in office, and they're going to cut it off. Trump enjoys talking. He'll talk far more than you need him to. Did the Secretary of Agriculture get arrested? Not that I'm aware of. Mine McCraney. What were the charges? I have not heard that. And I just got through watching World News. I did not see anything about that. I think Dems win the president, Republicans win everything else. And that came from DP Hunt. So you're suggesting you believe the Dems will win the presidency in 2024? I don't know. I can't imagine. Let's assume, and I'm not going to say I can't imagine the liberals winning in 2024. That's possible. Not Biden, but it is possible if they put someone else up there and say Trump does something crazy and runs for president. However, if the Dems win the presidency in 2024, they're probably going to win a lot of the lower seats as well. That's usually what happens. Only liberal. Okay, Major Wood. Only liberal I like in the world right here. Good stuff, good stuff. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm glad to have you here. I love seeing MAGA people upset. Why is that? That came from Slam the Ocean Man. Why would you like to see it? I understand the crowd I'm in. And there's a lot of MAGA folks who love seeing liberals upset. Hence the love of the nicknames that Trump likes to speak on. But why would you want to see your fellow Americans pissed off and upset? I don't get it. And I do understand it comes from both sides. By the way, folks, feel free to keep tapping that screen. You guys you're doing me a solid. My Patriots out here showing your boy love. Get them likes up to 5,000. When you tapping the screen, you see them damn hearts. You're helping out your humble correspondent. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. Scrolling forward, Joe, what is it? Sounds like Americans want to destroy this country. That came from James Shop 13. I believe there's some validity to that. If you do not support, let's not say support. Support is the wrong word. If you do not want your commander-in-chief to succeed, if you want your commander-in-chief to fail, to some degree, yeah, you are rooting for the downfall of this nation. Good example, when you suggest that under President Biden, the military is weaker, or we are the laughingstock of the country, or we're projecting weakness on a worldwide scale, understand that is not Biden. That's yourself you're talking about. That's you, that's your neighbors, that's your town, that's your state. Biden simply represents America. At the end of the day, he is the guy we have all chosen to represent us. Now, I understand you, I didn't vote for him, whatever. But at the end of the day, as a country, he is the guy we've chosen to represent us. Simply put, if he fucks up, you're fucking up. Do you think, and that's the way the world will look at it. The world doesn't look at America and says Joe Biden. They look at America and says you Americans. Do you think the invasion of the Ukraine would have been avoided if Trump was president? No. That came from that other dude, 906. No. If Trump was president, I do not believe Putin would currently be in the Ukraine. I've said this on numerous broadcasts that I believe with Trump being on par to build the largest skyscraper in Russia right before he got elected, he had business deals in Russia. I believe he had a good relationship with Vladimir Putin. I'm not saying he kissed Putin's ass. I'm not going to say some crazy shit like they were in bed together. I'm just simply saying to do what Trump was doing in Russia, particularly as an American, you would have to be in good with Vladimir Putin because he is literally one step below a dictator. I believe that Trump had a better relationship with Vladimir Putin than any of our past presidents in recent memory and any of the nominees, such as Hillary Clinton or Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, any of those folks. I believe Trump had a better relationship. The way I say it all the time is I believe Trump would have went to Vladimir Putin and told him, I have a legacy to worry about just like you do. As long as I'm in office, I get a max of 8 years. 4 years have already been expended. In the next 4 years, I can guarantee you, the Ukraine will not be allowed entry into NATO. They will not receive any significant weapons or armaments from the United States, and no funding. And as an exporter of natural resources, you can continue doing what you're doing, making money off of Eastern Europe and the European continent in regards to exporting fossil fuels. Once I leave office in 4 years, whatever happens, happens. You'll be free to do it. The Ukraine will be held in position, so they're not going to get any stronger because we're not going to allow them in NATO and we're not going to give them any weapons. You're going to be getting stronger because you'll continue exporting oil, making money, making relationships. All you got to do is hold off for 4 years, and I believe Vladimir Putin would have taken that deal. So when you ask, would this have been avoided under a Trump presidency? No, it would have been delayed. And I believe that once Trump was out of power, I strongly believe that what Vladimir Putin is doing is he's on a conquest to reassemble the Soviet Union. And I do not believe he's going to stop at the Ukraine. But I believe Trump would have been able to get him to delay it for 4 years, particularly if Trump sweetened the deal. And keep in mind, Trump is a deal maker. Trump is a very intelligent guy. Say what the hell you want, particularly from the left. You can call him whatever, but that guy is an incredibly smart deal-making type of guy. And I believe he would have made a deal with Vladimir Putin. Let's see here. What did he do? Trump did nothing. Not one president did anything. James Shop, I don't get what you're speaking in reference to. I think we need to quit bickering to each other and try to solve problems we have with an open mind. David White, the fact that I'm trying to get both sides of the aisle to come to communication here is similar to that. However, you have to realize when it comes to domestic issues, there really is no middle ground. Do you want to preserve your Second Amendment rights or do you not? Do you want to protect the sanctity of life or don't you? Do you want to defund police or do you not? There is no middle ground in a lot of this stuff. So there's going to be some bickering, but I appreciate your comment. Is Russia planning a full-scale assault on Ukraine? I don't think they can, FriendBot 2.0. I don't think they can. Other than using atomic or perhaps biological weapons, I don't believe they have enough to be very successful against the technology of the American military. We're training Ukrainians how to use the stuff we're giving them, and they're using it with great success. So if the Russians decide to go in full stock in regards to a conventional weapon, they could face a massacre. They may ultimately win. We're not going to argue about that. They have enough manpower that they would probably win ultimately, but I don't believe they want to pay the cost necessary to do that. I mean, they've already lost a significant amount of people you're talking a war that's been going on about 60 days. They've lost more people fighting Ukrainians in 60 days than we've lost probably in both of those wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. I think we lost, 6,000 in Iraq? I think they may have lost more people in 50 days than we did in nearly 20 years of war with two different countries. So that's not, by any scale of the imagination, a successful outcome. And keep in mind, they haven't conquered shit. The capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, is still in the hands of the Ukrainians. There's no way you can look at this and say it's leaning anywhere near success. Trump gets along best with dictators. That's a warning sign. Oh, Chris. Wow. I've said it before, when it comes to implementing successful legislation, Trump would be better off in a country that did not operate as a democracy. And I say this because anyone who criticizes Trump becomes a rhino or he hits him as hard as he can. And as president in the United States with 3 branches of government, you don't get to do it all by yourself. You can pass a hell of a lot of executive legislation, but at the end of the day, if you don't get it done properly, the next guy just comes in and writes that shit out, which is exactly what Biden has done on the wall and a host of other Trump's issues. Same thing Trump did to Obama. Passing legislation by executive order does not that does not mean you're passing solid legislation. And as president, you want the Senate and Congress to work with you. Using terms like "fuck your feelings" and all of that type of stuff, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on the long term. Ideas destroying America. Michael, your comment got cut off. It just says ideas destroying America. I'm assuming you're talking about Biden's ideas or ideas from the left. Dude is liberal in your name, ironic. Grass-fed 58. With a name like Grass-fed, I got to talk back to you. Good evening, sir. No, the name liberal, the handsome liberal, as you may see. No, there's nothing ironic about that. I make no qualms about that. I do lean left. However, I'm a moderate left. If you've been listening to AOC, the stuff that you hear on the right-wing news, they're going to put AOC out there. They're going to put Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. I don't lean that far to the left. If that's what you've been accustomed to listening to, yeah, then I don't sound liberal at all. Just like if you're on the right and you sit around listening to Marjorie Taylor Greene all the time, no, there's a lot of right-wingers that are closer to the center than, say, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I lean left, but I'm closer to being a moderate. Good comment. Going forward, can we speak live? Kevin, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
what does that say? So would you vote left in 2024? I have to see a little bit more. Kevin, give me a second. I have to see a little bit more of what transpires. Right now, I don't believe Biden deserves a second term. However, he is only he's not even quite halfway through the first. So I have to at least give the man time to correct things. But right now, his presidency has not been a success. Kevin, what's on your mind tonight?
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
All right, all right. I just got a couple questions for you. Why do you think? Well, I'm not gonna say you, but why should the government be involved in most of all these things? Why can't the government just stay out of right to life, guns, religion? Why can't they just stay out of it?
Well, if the government stays out of a lot of these things, you have what's referred to as anarchy. The problem
Exactly.
is our country was founded on letting the people run itself. And there was a lot of people that were ostracized and mistreated like that. I mean, just looking at yourself, looking at someone like me, can you imagine if the government just left it up to the people to decide how we would be treated? You wouldn't be doing very well.
Well, we're not doing very well.
You would be
I'm
doing
American
no, you
Indian. I'm
would be
American
doing
Indian. We're not
you
doing
would be
very well.
doing you would be doing even worse than you are now. You may not even be here. You might be
Of
extinct
course,
as
and
as a
that's what I
Native
believe in.
American.
I believe in
Yeah.
survival of the fittest. I'm an anarchist. Exactly.
So and that's another part of me when folks ask why are you liberal, because the right tends to believe in smaller government. A lot of the independents, libertarians, believe in almost no government, and I have to look at government and say, without government, there would be no emancipation with the freeing of the slaves. There would be no Civil Rights Act. The government has stepped in and saved some of us minorities and Native Americans. I don't listen. I don't hide the
We
idea that
lost.
you guys have
We
really
lost.
been treated like shit.
We
Go ahead.
lost.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Okay.
just simply saying that big government has done a lot for minorities. Not to say that they haven't hurt minorities with a lot of welfare acts and things like that, but at the end of the day, without big government, it would be even worse.
hmm hmm Yeah,
So,
like I said, be less people too. The same.
would you would you personally prefer yourself? Would you personally prefer that big government step completely out of the picture and just left the country to its own devices?
I wouldn't say completely because of, like you said, the anarchy part. People would not, um, like I said, everybody would kill everybody. Basically, if they didn't like
Yeah.
what you said, they'd kick. You know what I'm saying? So yes, but the thing is, the people that's put in charge is not doing their job. You understand what I'm saying? They're
Well,
not policing. They're not policing themselves. They're not policing
you
the police
well,
officers.
well,
Good old boy.
you're never going to get a perfectly ran government. There's always going to be some corruption. At the end of the day, despite all the things you mentioned, and a lot of that is true, we still happen to be, if not the best country, one of the top countries on earth. So we're doing
Which is
something right.
failing in major things. Which is failing in major things like healthcare. You know what I'm saying? We failing
I,
big time in that.
well,
And
I'm not.
education, we failing big time in that.
I'm not going to disagree that in this country, particularly when you look at how much we're taxed and things like that, and how much we work, that we don't receive some of the things that are, for the most part, given upon birth in other first world countries. I'm not going to disagree with that. But I will
Okay.
say at the same time, we still are one of the wealthiest, most successful countries on the planet.
We are. Definitely. That's the problem. That's what I'm saying. If we are the wealthiest nation, then we should be treating our citizens like we are the wealthiest nation. And they're not. That's the problem.
Well, give me if you think so. So you believe in America, we're treating our citizens poorly?
Yes. In some respects. Yes, I do. Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's a country on earth where the people in that.
Look at how lack of education most of these people are. I mean, 95% of people on this TikTok ain't got the brains they was born with. Okay, and the healthcare, you end up bankrupt if you get sick. That's terrible. I mean, I've lived abroad. I lived all over the world. I'm 60 years old. I was in the Navy. I've lived all over the world, and pretty much most of the countries, even some of the third world countries, they took care of their citizens. They didn't go bankrupt when they got sick. You know what I'm saying? They just don't. The hospitals were not put there to make profit, which our
It's
hospitals are.
interesting.
That's what they,
It's interesting you're saying that. I'm reading the comments coming in. There's a lot of folks that agree with you. Wow, I'm just
Hmm.
looking. Someone, Real Trucker just says our wealth is an illusion. We live on credit. Agree with the guest says user. Wow, I mean, there's most of the comments coming in. We don't take care of our own truth, says Michael. Looks like Browski or something like that. I mean, most of the folks agree with Germany is treating their people pretty decently. Stephen, yeah. Listen, the liberal in me, here's where I differ a little bit. I do believe in self-reliance and you should work for shit. You shouldn't expect people to give you everything. However, in regards to what you said, I do also agree that a healthy country is a more functional country. Same thing with education. And a educated country is a more functional country because when you look
Exactly.
at our health, when you look at our education system, we're for the most part importing the most needed career fields, engineers, medical professionals. We're importing them from countries that focus on education and
Exactly.
in
And they ain't got to
countries where
pay for
they
it where
actually
they are
provide.
going. And you
Yeah.
don't go
So
bankrupt getting an education. You understand? We go
yeah,
bankrupt here getting an education. You're paying for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? And a
yeah,
lot of these guys, they don't get paid enough once they graduate to pay back the daggone loans. That's what I'm saying. This
yeah.
country is greed, man. It's just terrible. I mean, that's just the way I
Well,
see it.
Well, I don't think you're too far off. And see, the Pirate King said they actually want us uneducated with the Pirate King 72.
Yeah.
I'll agree with your point in saying greed, but let me make this clear. You folks want a capitalist system. You obviously nobody wants socialism. We don't want communism. If you want a capitalist system, what is the primary goal of a capitalist system? To make money, to make as much money as you can, to literally focus only on making money. That is what a capitalist system is about, always focusing on the bottom line. So it shouldn't
Right.
surprise you that people are being mistreated or overlooked for other folks trying to make money. That's how capitalism works. It's all
Yeah,
about capitalizing off of the Lord. Go ahead.
that's why I left the country in 2012. I live in the Philippines.
How,
I
how
said the
is
hell
it
with it.
over there?
Huh?
How is it over there?
Beautiful. And the people are beautiful. Everybody's nice. You don't go bankrupt when you go to the doctors. Everybody gets educated. It's nice.
Are they driving? Let me ask you this question. You said everybody go to the doctor, everybody's educated. Do you see navigators and expeditions going up and down this for navigators and Lincoln navigators and Escalades? Do you see big fancy cars and big houses? Are people living large like they do in America?
Not everywhere. No, but all the expatriates are living down there. And yes, they are driving those kind of vehicles. A whole lot of ex-U.S. citizens live,
But
especially
they're
where I'm
doing
at in
it.
Steamboat City.
But
It's a whole
but
lot
you
of
gotta
Americans living here.
Yeah, but the Americans that are living there, living good, are doing it with American money. I'm talking about people born and raised in the Philippines. Can they reach the level of wealth that we can in America? Now, if you've spent 30 years
No,
in the
they
U.S.
can't.
military,
But that's not what makes them happy. You understand?
okay,
It's
all
family,
right.
being able to eat, being able to be healthy. That's all that's important to them. They don't care what their house look like. They're not trying to impress nobody. That's just I'm telling you, it's just a lot less stressful life. This is how it is.
Well, I
That's
live
what I found.
That's a
That's what I found.
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I lived in Australia for a number of years, and I said the same thing that they have less and they're happier with it. But Australia is not as poor as the Philippines is. But I
Right.
did live overseas as well, so that's a fair question. I mean, a fair point.
Yeah. I'm just saying happiness. It's more important to me than money. That's all I'm saying.
Well, shit. Sometimes without money, you can't find happiness. Depends on where you're
Well,
at.
fortunately, I made enough to buy all the happiness I need.
Okay.
I had three businesses, so I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. Come on back to anytime. I want to get back to some of the comments. I don't want to neglect
Yeah,
the audience too long. Hey, it's been
yeah.
hey anytime. Come on back through, man.
All right, buddy.
All
Take
right,
it
you
easy.
have a good night. Or whatever time happens.
Wow, coming from the Philippines. Somebody said healthcare in the Philippines is horrible. Who said that? That came from looks like it says the One Steelers. I think we talked before. Is horrible in the Philippines. Limited resources. Let me say this in regards to folks saying that some of these countries that provide universal health care or some form of health care is either horrible, you're going to be in long lines or what. Keep in mind the whole purpose of providing universal health care was to give it to people who did not have it at all. So if I have no health care at all and you say, well, I'm going to give you Philippine-style healthcare, but it's horrible. Well, shit, right now, you're comparing it to nothing. So just keep that in mind. I can't get you guys to tap the screen, get me up to 5,000 likes. Please, please look out for your boy. DHS, who can't even protect the border. XYYZ, I don't think it's a case of DHS not being able to protect the border. As you say, they can't. They can protect the border. They don't want to. Our porous border is deliberate. I've said it on every broadcast. The liberals want illegals to come in this country because once they're naturalized, they turn into votes. The right wing has wanted historically illegals to come in this country because the right wing caters to big business and illegals turn into cheap labor. I've said it a million times. This is the only guy in our lifetime that I believe gave a gallant effort at protecting the border. But he only has a max of 4 years remaining. But both sides, say what you want about liberals and open fucking borders. President Reagan granted thousands of illegals amnesty and let them stay here. And President George W. Bush is known for the phrase, they will work jobs no Americans want. So let's make it clear, the right wing has a history of being in favor of illegal immigrants staying here as well. It's just Trump. Trump is the only one that's given that lip service, which is probably why a lot of you voted for him. He was actually being serious about it. Good day, Snoop. Don, I don't know about Snoop. That's a bit much. He's talking about the caller that looked a little bit like Snoop. Okay, I see a little resemblance from the hair and things. Money won't make you happy, but the lack of money will definitely make you sad. That came from Charles in Charge. Oh, Scott Bale. I really want to agree with that comment, but I'm not quite in the tank of that. Money won't make you happy, but the lack of money definitely will make you sad. And this is why I say that. We have a growing group of people in this country, whether it's the tiny house crew, the van life crew, the off the grid folks. There is a large growing minimalist society, and they don't need a lot of money. They don't need, I personally myself, I was an expediter driving across the country delivering freight for 4 years. I did that, stopped doing it a few years ago, but I lived in a cargo van. I mean, I made decent money doing it, but I didn't need a lot of it. I mean, so I will tell you that there are folks out there don't necessarily believe that everybody who has a very low income is not happy. There are plenty of folks you would think there would be barely enough to live off. Because let's be real, most Americans, particularly in this country, you make far more than what you would need to provide yourself with food, shelter, and clothing. Most of us we're all on smartphones right now. Most of us are enjoying this program, and goddammit, I hope you're enjoying it. You're talking with the handsome liberal. Most of us are enjoying this program on a device that probably costs at least $500. At least, if you got a modern smartphone, you've paid at least $500. That's not a necessity. You can get a flip phone for $20 that'll make phone calls. We have a lot more in this country than we need. So I don't know about not having money would make everybody sad, but I kind of want to agree with you. The GOP anti-choice legislation in SCOTUS will drive massive Dem turnout in November. I do think the GOP is doing a few things that could potentially unite liberals. Chris rather. However, with Biden and the price of fuel at the pump, you're talking about the pro-life legislation. Oklahoma just passed a law yesterday or whatever where you can't. The whole state is pro-life. You cannot get an abortion in that entire state. But you got to look at the folks that are affected by the laws that the Dems hate versus the issues that are coming from President Biden. Okay, pro-choice legislation, for the most part, affects fertile women generally under the age of 35. The price we're paying at the pump, inflation, that affects every fucking body. So which one are you in favor of? As a guy, myself in my late 40s, who hopefully will never ever need to worry about something like pro-choice, pro-life legislation, I'm going to go with the guy who can solve the price I'm paying at the pump. And there are other issues down the line. I think that the only thing I can see where it might really energize Democrats against the GOP is the changes they're making to voter laws. Say what you want on the right about security and integrity of the election. Say it all you want. they are passing laws that make it harder to vote. And you're talking to someone who defends the need or the right or a law to have an ID. I defend that 100%. I don't think there's any excuse for an adult saying he can't get an ID to vote. I do believe you should need it to show an ID to vote. But they're going way beyond just requiring an ID. They're playing mix and match with mailboxes and changing times the polls are open, and they've passed a lot of laws beyond just voter ID. But I'm fine with voter ID. I appreciate the follow there, Kevin. Kevin doing this. Kevin, I appreciate the follow. Somebody looks like Doug all day said you were doing it. So there are a lot of folks that favorite you. There are a lot of folks that favor you. Folks, for those who are watching, feel free, come on through. We can do one-on-ones all day. You can tell me tell me to go to hell all you want. I make it clear this is a no snowflake zone. You see the sign. No snowflakes here. We handle any and all comments. There's nothing you're going to say here that's going to make your humble correspondent run. If you get banned here, it's social media because I let any and all comments come through. Free speech, 100%. Whitmer just vetoed a bill that would issue a warning about voting twice. Makes you wonder. I would like to hear her, let her speak why would she veto that? Because, okay, you said a bill that would issue a warning about voting twice. Okay, my guess is she doesn't believe that it is a big enough deal to proactively issue a warning about voting twice. I would assume that the average American already realizes that if you vote twice, you're doing something wrong. They may not know it's a felony. They may not know to what extent, but who in the hell thinks that you can vote twice? I don't think I'm not going to defend Whitmer completely because I'd like to hear what reason she gave for vetoing it. But do you really mean it's like saying, you can't shoot somebody? Who needs to be told that? You already know you can't vote twice. So if she vetoed the bill, I want to hear from her why, but I can't imagine that being necessary either. I mean, you already know that. We have the moral high ground. Warren Shoot. I'm going to start out by asking, who are we, left or right? And I tell you right off the bat, I can point to both sides. I can point to some significant flaws on the left and right to dispel any notion that either one of those sides have the moral high ground. Perhaps you're running as an independent or something else, but if you're running from the left or the right, you don't have the moral high ground. BSC, Soft, appreciate those roses. Holla at your boy. Saudi owned the American people, largest oil. Saudi controlled gas prices in America. If you believe that, I didn't see the name there. It disappeared. But if you actually believe that the Saudis own America because of fossil fuels, then you actually should probably be supporting Joe Biden trying to get us off of it because he would eliminate what you just said. Cameras on every voting site. No more 2 a.m. ballot trucks. The one still is, let me make something clear to you. In a country with 330 million people, how many people voted for Trump? Supposedly 64 million, supposedly 74 million for Biden. 140 million people roughly. In a country where that many people vote, I don't give a shit what you try. You're never going to make that election 100% honest. It's just too many people. And if you ever find a way to hold every voter accountable, then the people at the polling places, the ones who collect the votes, will cheat. Or the trucks that take them from point A to point B. There's no way to create a totally honest voting system up to and including the chain of command with all of those votes, or the chain of possession or what. Somewhere along the line, there will always be ways to cheat. You can hack into machines, you know about that. You can pay off there's going to always be a way. If your goal is to keep striving to make a perfect system, you'll be doing that for the rest of your life. Let's see who's here. Okay, Trucker Jeff, we can holler.
No, they won't. Duncan, hang on a second. Hold on. The reason I say midterms won't tell the tale is because first-term presidents typically lose in the midterms. Trump lost in the midterms. What tale did that tell? Obama lost his first midterms. What tale did that tell? Bush lost his midterms. Clinton lost his midterms. That happens to all of them. Road Trucker Jeff, what's up?
Hey, handsome liberal, how we doing? Hey, listen, yeah,
I'm doing good.
Good, brother. Listen, that's all good. But look, when you're talking about voter integrity, somebody from your side, Jimmy Carter, right? You remember Jimmy? He came out with the
Okay.
Carter-Baker. Remember the Carter-Baker Commission came out in 2005, right? And he came up with 7 different items that you could feel assured. Sorry, I'm getting back in my truck. I was just out getting dinner. I'm getting back in my truck. But so he came. There's bullet points, 7 bullet points on there that said these are the things that you need to follow to feel secure about your election. Every one of those 7 items, all them bullet points, you can go look at the Carter-Baker report. Every one of those bullet points was violated in 2020. Every one of them.
Well, when Carter passed those bullet points, because keep in mind, one of the primary reasons that Trump is alleging fraud with states such as Pennsylvania is because they changed the rules due to COVID. Jimmy Carter, I'm sure, was not talking about a pandemic happening during the election.
But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If it is something that's going to create a weakness in your vote integrity, it's going to create a weakness, what pandemic or not. You know, if mail-in ballots are going to create a failure in your chain of custody, for example, well then, if you have a pandemic, then I could understand where you have to go that route. Okay. But then you have to also understand that that's not as secure a means, right? You know, it's been identified, right?
Okay.
So if you're going to so for conservatives who come back after 2020 and say, well, look, we loosened all these things, like we need to make sure that this is valid. Well, you could go back to Jimmy Carter and say, and understand, if people were thinking objectively, you go back and say, okay, here's all the 7 things that all of these things went south in 2020. So I can understand where the conservatives are coming from. I can understand why they want to see additional scrutiny, right?
Okay. Let me say this in regards to what you're stating. I do believe with some of the changes they made with COVID that the strength of let me put it this way. I'm going to go with what Crisis said about people hating technology. The more ways you allow folks to vote, the weaker you make the system. If you allow folks to vote online, for instance, you could hack in online. The electronics could go down. Somebody could put a pre-written program on the voting machine. The point is, there is a difference between what could happen and what did happen. Like, for instance, they supposedly found some kind of way you could hack into the Dominion voting machines. What you're talking about with COVID in the mail, they changed a lot of methods so you could mail in votes. That could allow somebody to cheat through the mail. It's a big difference, though, in saying that because of those changes, they weakened the system and people could have cheated versus people who did cheat. The best way I can explain that to you, let's say you got 3 locks on your door, 3 deadbolts, and one night you take one of those off and you only got 2. That means your door is weaker. That means people could break into your house easier, but that doesn't mean it actually happened. Trump didn't claim the system was weaker. He claimed it was compromised, and he does not have any proof of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's true. And here again, you know, that 2,000 Mules, that's out today, right? In the theaters today.
What platform? It's only in theaters? It's only in theaters? Is it on any streaming platform?
It's in movie theaters today, and then again on I think Wednesday, right? So I mean, you're in Chicago, so you could probably Google it, find, you know. But the thing is, on the 7th, it'll be available for download, right?
Okay. Because I really want to see that. I really want to see that. But back to the election, like I said, I'm fine with security and integrity of the election. But here's something that is food for thought. Trump sued the state of Pennsylvania, or Texas. Texas sued the state of Pennsylvania on Trump's behalf because they stated that the changes Pennsylvania made in the allowing mail-in votes was unconstitutional. They wanted to take it to the Supreme Court. The state of Montana sued Texas on the grounds that they made the exact same COVID-related changes, but because Trump won, Texas for some reason, left the state of Montana out of their lawsuit. And I believe strongly that is why a lot of the courts did not entertain that lawsuit, because it looked not like they were trying to secure the integrity of the election, that they only had a beef where Trump lost, because the governor of Montana stated, we're doing the exact same, we did the exact same thing the state of Pennsylvania did. Why isn't Trump suing us? And they didn't have an excuse for that. So that's one of the things I would say. And when I watch your 2000 Mules, if they bring up the changes in Pennsylvania and do not bring up the changes in Montana, I would have to ask why. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I don't know about the situation in Montana, to be honest, because, you know, and obviously the assumption there is they're going to vote red. So there isn't a whole lot of attention to what's going on there. But the issue with the Supreme Court now, this is weird. The president, okay, so Trump went to the Supreme Court and said, look, there's an issue. I've experienced harm because of fraud in this election. And the Supreme Court said he didn't have standing. So that's bizarre. How does the president, you would think he's the direct, the impact is on him directly. If there was fraud, they said he didn't have standing, which is why they went to Texas in the first place. So they said, okay, well, the individual doesn't have it, so it's got to be a state issue. So that's where Texas went and made their declaration. They had in all, it was 20 states that went to the Supreme Court. They denied standing to 20 states and said they didn't have it. So if that's related to Montana.
Let me ask you this question in regards to what you just said. They went to the Supreme Court with 20 states. Let me ask you, what is your opinion on this? When you factor in that 33% of the Supreme Court justices were appointed by Trump himself, 6 out of the 9 are Republican. Why do you believe that they tossed out any notion of listening to Trump when they're clearly a third of them are appointed by him himself? They actually owe their appointments to President Trump, and then you got another 3 that are Republican. Why do you believe so many Republicans tossed out what Trump was claiming?
Well, the only rational reason that I can come up to you with is that the courts aren't the proper place to legislate election issues. You have to do it at the state level. State and yeah, you know, and you know as well as I do, the states are responsible for, you know, they certify them, they count them, they all 50 states have different rules and so on. So I think what the courts are saying is that the court isn't you can't legislate this in the court. You have to do it outside of that venue. I think that's the only conclusion.
Okay, well let me give you a follow-up there. Let's go with that. This should be done at the state level. Once again, I'm asking you this question: why do you believe there has not been a single Republican governor that believes that the election was not held properly? Not one we're not talking liberals, we're talking Republicans. Not one Republican governor has publicly stated, even in the states that Trump won, even in Wyoming and Texas and states that Trump won, not one Republican governor has come out and said Trump won by a landslide, which is what he's claiming. Why is that?
Well, I don't know about a landslide, and Trump is going to trump everything up. You know, oh, it was this and it was that. You know what? That's just, he's a salesman, and he does that, which to his detriment is everything is hyperbole with Trump, and it's, you know, and it's really harmful in a lot of situations, especially that, oh, I won by a landslide. No. Even if you won, it was nip and tuck because a lot of people don't like him, right? It wasn't going to be a landslide for Trump. It just wasn't. Right, I think we understand that. So to come out and say, oh well, you know, the results are completely, you know, upside down. No, but if there's fraud, it has to be election fraud. We're not talking about somebody voting, taking their grandmother's ballot and sending in. That's voter fraud, right? You find a ballot and then you fill it out for your spouse or whatever fraudulently. Okay, that's voter fraud. What we're talking about, what I'm talking about, or what conservatives are talking about is election fraud. For election fraud to have happened and be successful, it has to be everybody. Everybody's in on it.
Well, here's the issue. Like I've said earlier in the broadcast, in a country with 330 million people, I have no doubt that in every election in our lifetime there has been fraud. The problem is where you lose me as a constituent, as a voter, as an educated individual, is when we pretend like 100% of the fraud came from liberals and the Republicans just are all walking around with halos over their head. I've said it before that Trump should have done a 50 state audit. If you want to claim that the integrity of the election was not held properly, you pay for a recount or an audit, and then you can show, well, look, first of all, you'd have more fraud. But when you only do an investigation on the states you lost, and you go to Wisconsin, I lost Wisconsin, so there's probably fraud there. A big ass state like Texas, a big ass state like Florida, with all these metropolitan areas, I believe they were 100% honest. No, that you just happen to win there. When you only investigate the states you lost, it makes it appear as if you're not pursuing a fair election. You're just trying to fucking win. When you call the governor of Georgia and say, I need you to find me 11,000 votes, you're not complaining that the election wasn't held properly. You're not complaining of fraud. You're just saying, I need you to make this some kind of way so that I'd win. You don't. If he could find you 11,000 votes, you don't give a shit what happened in that state at that point. You just want to win, and that makes it look shady from the claims that he's making. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But when you are talking about that, I think the only example that we can use is to go back to Fulton County and the Cyber Ninjas audit that they did there, right? And I'm telling you, I don't know if you've read the audit, but at the very least, anybody with an objective mind, which I know you have, looking at that audit, it's very slipshod the way that our elections are held, or at least the way that they were held in 2020. Right?
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. If you don't like I believe that was the Cyber Ninja. That was in Arizona, right?
Yep, Fulton County, Arizona. So if people were looking at that and see how the ballots were treated, this is some kind of the Democrat, the on the left, the Democrats come out and they say, oh, well, this is a sacred thing and it's our, and you're challenging it, whatever. If that were true to the Democrats and they objectively looked at how ballots were handled in Fulton County, then they would insist on expanding it, and it should be expanded to all 50 states. I agree with you. There are plenty of Republicans that I don't believe would be there outside. Look at Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. There are people that I don't believe are sitting there legitimately on both sides.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Magoro 369, thanks for the rose. I will say this in response to what you said. People are not sitting there legitimately. If the election was mishandled the way Trump is suggesting, whereas he won in a landslide and the election was stolen from him, I say this on every broadcast where this comes up. When you vote for president, you do not just vote for president. You vote for folks in down ballot races. You vote for senators. You vote for Congress, governors. You might be voting for your mayor. You even vote to enact certain legislation, different bills. If the election was not held properly, that means a lot of the Republican senators and Congress people who actually outperformed the poll predictions, they did better than they were predicted in the polls. Down ballot Republicans did. If the election was not held properly, that means they're not supposed to be there either. We're trying to pretend like from the right side of things, we believe I won't say we, but I'll say the right believes that the election was not held properly and Trump was cheated. However, they have no problem accepting all of the senators and Congress people that won that night. They should not be in there either. Maybe Biden should have 52, 53 senators right now. That's
maybe.
If you believe the election was stolen, you got to look at all of the people. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I absolutely I agree with that point 100%. You have to know, or well, okay, look, and we've touched on this a little bit because I've gone back to JFK, and I used to bring this up with whenever I've believed that our elections were not appropriate. I believe that for my whole life, that there was something wrong in our elections. And when I've had this conversation with people on the left, I would go back, and there were New York Times articles at the time JFK was elected saying that it was not legitimate, right? Around that time or shortly thereafter.
Well,
you probably can't find it today.
Okay, fair enough. I got somebody else wanting to get in, but I'll give you the last word. But let me just say, in regards to what you just said, hell, I'm black. If you want to talk about elections not being held properly in regards to JFK and some of those folks, I couldn't even vote at all back then.
Okay, fair. Yeah, right. Well, it wasn't your fault. Right, it wasn't you. I wasn't blaming you, brother. I wasn't blaming you. Hey, look, one thing. Okay, before I jump out, before I wouldn't need to be clear about this phrase. I have called you. You call yourself a liberal, and I have called you a Jeffersonian liberal. Right? I want to explain where I got that from. I got that from Walter Williams, right, who is a professor of economics at George Mason University in D.C. African-American brother. Fucking genius. He used to fill in for Rush Limbaugh. I would rather hear Walter Williams speak than Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, that brother was brilliant. He's a fucking genius. I think he passed not too long ago. But when I say Jeffersonian liberal, what that means, really it means conservative.
Well, I can't accept the conservative part yet, but I will say any compliment that ends in fucking genius, 2 thumbs up to that. Anytime, come on back to. I got one other return to get in here, but
all right,
come
man.
on through anytime.
All right, man. I'll see you, man.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure. Real Trucker Jeff there. Kristen West. Let's see what's going on.
A couple of the comments. Instead of arguing, TikTok, instead of arguing over Biden, Trump, we should be focused on getting new blood in D.C. all the way. JMKR 1986.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with
hang
that.
on a second, Christian, hang on 1 second. I do agree. Keep in mind, Joe Biden will be like, 82 or some shit like that in 2024. Trump will be in his late 70s. I think Trump will be 78. Newer, younger blood, I'm kind of in the camp of that, which is why I strongly believe that DeSantis on the right would be a better candidate. Kristen West, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I was just thinking that Joe Biden is basically the Taco Bell of presidents.
Explain that.
Well, it never ends well. It never ends well. Whenever you decide to eat Taco Bell, it never ends well.
I had some Taco Bell I went to Taco Bell. I had some a couple of days ago. I was about to say I had some before this broadcast, but I went there and I couldn't get in. I was out. I go riding on an e-bike or whatever, and I did stop off at Taco Bell for some nachos. They're still observing some of this COVID shit, and you could only go through the drive-through. But anyway, Taco Bell was not that bad. Big Jake, thanks for those roses. You believe President Biden is a Taco Bell of presidency. Are you suggesting that he fucks up your stomach?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, it's like as soon as you ingest some Taco Bell, it seems like it comes out faster than it goes in.
Oh, my God. Well, he's going to get 4 years, so that's a lot of shit to be backed up. He's going to get 4 years. Appreciate that, Lauren, that rose there. Look.
I mean, it's already been a long, almost 2 years. You know, we're facing higher costs and everything, and it just keeps skyrocketing out of control. Food costs. Now they're talking about food shortages. You know, all these hardships coming to this country, and it's like, regardless of which political party you vote for or whatever, you can't deny the fact that things are getting increasingly harder and harder on the American people. And it's like, it's just the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I
cannot deny inflation. Right. I'm on the same side as you on this. Economically, I cannot deny that under President Biden, things are getting worse. My only question, I guess I would ask to you, is Trump the only answer? Is the only answer to solve what Biden is doing is to go back to Trump?
Well, I think the problems we're facing now are beyond Trump. Trump's not even an option anymore. We are facing a government that is so corrupt, so out of control, so in their own interests, and so on their own agenda. They've completely forgotten about the common man. Every 4 years they come out and
When did that start?
Idea.
When do you believe that started? When did that start?
Well, it's been going on for over 30 years.
Okay.
20 years
All
and
right.
sold us down the river, and anybody that stands up against it is attacked on all platforms. Social
Well, I
media
think
now, the mainstream media, the education system, everything. Anybody that stands up against it and says, you know what, this ain't right, and they're
well,
attacked.
I've said
I get
this.
attacked.
I've I've said this before in regards to government agents or government politicians being on a take. It takes a lot to get someone who is very successful, which most of our Congress, Senate, and even the presidents are in the private sector, and to come to Washington, do a job for the people, and get paid peanuts. I mean, the money was so little, Trump didn't even take it. I think President Obama is probably the only president we've had in recent history where the money he got paid from the White House actually meant something to him. So when you say that, well, they don't look out for the people and things like that,
Well, I
if
mean,
you want,
Barack Obama is one of the richest people in the world. His father, Satoru, his last name, his original last name, was one of the richest men in the world. So the whole thing, I guess maybe it was sold to the American people. The whole story behind it is just it's simply not true. That he isn't
oh,
he has
wait a
always
minute,
had
wait a
money.
minute,
He's
wait
always
a minute,
been privileged.
wait a minute. You are you suggesting that Obama is richer than say Mitt Romney or Donald Trump?
Yes, he's one of the richest people in the world. If you look at his net worth and who his family lineage is and who they were and their wealth, absolutely.
I'm looking in the comments coming in. There's not a lot of folks that agree with you on this. You're saying
Well, of
his
course, because
father.
I'm a very controversial guy and I talk about a lot of things that I know about, and a lot of people are spoon-fed by the mainstream media, and they don't ever question anything, and nothing is ever questioned. It's always just believed as fact because they aren't old enough to actually know anything that happened transpired before the 20 years or whatever they've been alive. They simply don't know about those things, and so
Let me ask you
every
this. Let me
disagreement
in
gets labeled
little.
as a conspiracy theory.
Okay, let me ask you this. And now before I ask you this, little Alex, you asked which way I lean. I lean left. Let me ask you this, Christian. Do you believe, flat out question, you can answer it any way you want. Do you believe President Obama was born in America?
It's neither here nor there for me. I mean, the greater aspect of looking at things politically in this country, I don't believe any of it. I don't believe anything that's perpetrated out through the media, through the scams that are put out. I think they placate people. I think they put out a message that they want people to
I'm not
believe
I'm
in.
not asking I'm not asking about the media. I'm asking you personally, do you believe that man was born on US soil? Yes or no?
I can't find any evidence to prove or disprove any of that, and I won't make an assumption or an opinionated decision on something I don't have all the information on.
So in other words, you're not for certain he was born in this country.
That's not what I said. I mean,
Yeah, that is
I
what you
mean,
said.
you
You
you could
said
you
you
could compare
can't
it from
decide which way. You have no evidence. You don't
yeah.
know,
Well,
is what you just said.
how would I know the lineage of someone that I don't have all the information on the truthful information on? How could I? I mean, you could say whatever you want about anybody. If you repeat it enough times, people will believe it. Correct?
Okay. Do you believe President Biden was born in America?
I think that's a requirement to run for president, is it not?
Did that change after Obama or something?
I don't know where you're going with this, but I mean, I think you're implying
I,
something
you're
I've
what
already
I'm
I've
what I'm
already talked
saying.
about.
What I'm saying is your answers are confusing to me. You clearly believe one way, but when questioned on it, your
Well, I
answers
think
are.
I
I
think
don't know
maybe
where to
you're
go
you're
with that.
well, I think what you're doing right now is you're predetermining my answers and waiting for me to
I
respond to
asked
you
you yet.
to determine your own reaction.
How could I predetermine something where I gave you the ability to answer yes or no? I literally
And
gave this is no
okay,
snowflake zone. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I asked you, do you believe if Barack Obama was born in this country or not? Yes or no? I didn't predetermine anything. I gave you the
how
ability
how
to
will I
answer it.
formulate a belief on things I don't have all information on and documentation on?
Okay.
How,
Okay. I don't know where to go with that. I'm just willing to let you get your point across. I got somebody else trying to get in, so I'm gonna move the program on. It is what it is. But I appreciate you coming
Dude,
through.
I see exactly where you were going with the entire live. I mean, the minute you want to ask questions that you don't get the answer that you want, you kick them.
This is a no snowflake zone, man. I'm not running from you at all.
So
I'm
here
asking
you
you,
go, here you go with
where
the
am I?
label of
Okay,
snowflake. I mean, what point have I been a snowflake at all? I mean, you asked me questions and I gave you honest answers, and now you're labeling me.
your answer was I can't come to an opinion on whether the guy's. That's not an answer.
Yeah, because
That's not yes or no. That's
no,
not an
you're
answer
twisting
at
my
all.
words around, because what I said to you is that I don't have all the information on them, and I can make an assumption about somebody because that's prejudicial.
Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I was in the camp with you when you mentioned that politicians don't tend to look out for the people of this
Well,
country.
no, they
When you
don't,
started
because
saying
they're
Barack
after their
Obama,
own interests. They all are.
so
They were all after their own interests. Our interests are not in their interests at all. Their interests is staying
let
in
me ask you
office and
this.
being in power.
Let me ask you this. How do you know for certain that Barack Obama, based on his dad, is the richest person in the country, but you don't even know if he's born in the country? How could you know more about his dad than you know about the president himself?
Because all his records are sealed. All his records were sealed all along.
But
No,
then
nobody can
how do
know
you know
anything.
that's his actual dad? If all of Barack Obama's records are sealed, as you say, then how do you know that's his actual dad?
Well, because the information that has come out has been available online, was that he was a resident of Hawaii, but he's also publicly announced that he was born in Kenya. There's video footage of him saying that.
But is it not possible that he may have been lying? Are you picking and choosing when you believe him and when you don't?
But I mean, he announced that before he was a senator. So he said that, I'm a former citizen of Kenya, now running for senator of the United States.
He
So I mean,
also,
those are his. I'm not making that stuff up. Those are his
I
own
get that. I
words.
get that. Can you see what I'm holding up here? This is a campaign. This is a campaign cup from Barack Obama. He sold this to raise money during the birther movement. Behind
I
it
mean, I
is
mean,
his, this is his actual, this is his actual birth certificate. It doesn't say anything about Kenya. This is his actual birth certificate. So I
I mean,
just want
but
to
I
tell
mean,
you that.
I mean, but they could put out anything they want and fabricate anything they want. Who are we to believe anybody? It doesn't have to do with Barack Obama or any candidate. But I mean, the media can put out anything that they want, and it's up to you to either believe it or question it. And it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I think the whole entire system is corrupt and full of lies,
Well,
and that we're being swindled as American people.
here's the point I'm trying to make to you. Everybody's going this is what's called believing what you want to hear. When he said he was born in Kenya, well, he said it. So, but when he says he's born in America, well, that's a lie. He said both of them. You're picking and choosing. You saw stuff on the internet, for instance. You believe
I'm
that.
not picking I'm not picking and choosing anything. These are I'm just recommenting on things that I've observed. I mean, that
Okay.
anybody can do that. It doesn't have to do with any political party affiliation or anything like that. I mean, anybody can observe information. The internet is forever. I mean, anytime anything is recorded and broadcasted in any one of the main platforms, anybody can observe that and make their own assertions from it. My point that I'm trying to make is that I don't trust any of them.
Well,
I think they're all full of lies.
the point I'm trying to make is that I lived in Chicago during the time Obama went to Reverend Wright's church, the time he was a community organizer, the time he was running for Senate, and that guy did not live like a super rich, one of the richest person. He did if he is as wealthy as you say, his father wasn't sharing shit with him. He lived within walking distance of where I lived. So, and I didn't live by any means wealthy. I could have walked to his house. He lived in Hyde Park. Well, he didn't even live in Hyde Park at the time. But for him, you look at Trump. Trump had a wealthy dad, by no means as wealthy as what you're claiming that Obama had. And Trump has lived super wealthy his
Okay,
entire
so I mean,
adult life. You're claiming Obama has
you're
all of
bringing
this
up
money.
Trump, and everybody likes to do that. They like to bring up Trump. They like to
We don't
blame him
look.
for everything. And it's like for the 30 plus years that Donald Trump was in the public eye, nobody attacked him on the levels that like they attacked him when he ran for president. I mean, he was
Okay.
active in many different communities, active, and he was given a civil rights award. I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't, I haven't been so observant
I
of all
don't
that,
know
but
about.
with Rosa Parks and
I don't know about I don't know about Trump getting a civil rights award, but I will admit he was favored by Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. He went to Hillary Clinton's funeral, Hillary Clinton's wedding. I agree with you that
right,
Trump was not viewed that way before he ran for office. But I say it all
right.
the time. Nobody was claiming that Barack Obama, the senator, was born in Kenya. No one was complaining that Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, was abusing children or drinking blood from babies. When you run for office, shit comes
I
out.
tell
That's
you,
not unique to Trump. That is
well,
not
you're going
unique to
off on
Trump.
a kind of a tangent right now, but
Okay.
I don't
All
know
right,
really
man.
what you're referring
Look,
to, but listen,
okay.
I don't trust any of them. Listen,
Okay, that's
I don't
that's
have any
that's fine.
totally party affiliations, but I think it's the way that the Republican Party has been treated very highly unfairly. When you look back at the history of the party being an abolitionist party that was founded for and by Black people to defend themselves against slavery, and
Okay.
they were the party that passed the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment of the Constitution, and Civil Rights Act, and all of it with 100% Republican support. And then the big argument is always, oh, well, the parties switched, but nobody can
Okay.
point out exactly when that happened.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go.
Cut him. I gave him man plenty of time to get his point across. Like I said, no snowflake zone. Being candid, I don't agree with hardly anything he said other than folks in Washington don't always have our best interests at heart. However, there are other folks who want to get in. I want to move the program along.
Like I said, being candid, I don't agree with hardly anything he said, and most of the stuff he said, even my right wing folks, the ones who absolutely despise Obama, don't agree with what he said either. Folks, crazy Michael, who were asking, did I cut him off? Yeah, I made it clear that I was about to go. He said, well, no, you're trying to hide. And I gave that man plenty of time. It's not like he only was on here for 60 seconds. There were several members in the audience, like, get rid of him. I let the man speak plenty. He got his point across. You know where he's coming from. But I can't let him dominate the program. Okay, I cannot reach your name now. Stitch, go ahead.
So let me say this. I've seen some of your lives, and me and you run into some of the same problems. I don't profess myself to be liberal. I'm more of a lean left of center kind of guy. So that's where I'm at. But here's one of the things, and it was just evidenced by your last guest. Conservatives have an accountability problem. They have a real big projection problem. And the issue is what I always come up against, which you probably have too, is that just like how they try to say anytime that, especially within African Americans, we talk about certain issues, you notice they label us victim, still in the plantation, but they project the same victim mentality also. Look at what he's saying that, well, Republicans get a hard time. The media was hard on Donald Trump. Well, look what Donald Trump was doing before he ran for president. Look at the birther conspiracy. Look at him getting sheriff out of Arizona, looking to the Obamas and found out that they were, at one point in time, considering breaking up the marriage and all this other kind of stuff. They don't want to take accountability for the multiple conspiracy theories, the QAnon stuff. And then whenever you challenge them on it, whenever you do bring up stats, data, times in history, whenever the Republican Party, or let's just say the conservatives, because I don't like to speak in parties, I like to speak in ideologies. And the minute that you challenge them on it and say, hey, look, why did this happen? Hey, look, why did this happen? It's always some doggone excuse. And one of the
Well,
things that I always, oh, go ahead.
let me interject for a minute. Me, even though I make no qualms about who I am, you see the name, I can see issues on both sides. And some of the stuff you're accusing the right
Right.
of doing, the left does as well. If you really have to
Yes,
explain something,
agreed.
hold on a second. If you really have to explain some of AOC's policies and things like that, you get the same runaround. The reason why that guest was a little bit different is because he is a far right person. When you mention QAnon and stuff like that, a lot of my guests, my favorite guest, I make no qualms about it. I prefer MAGA's my preferred guest, but he was further right than a lot of folks. I've seen a lot of folks in the comments that I know identifies as right. I've talked to some of these folks, and even they were like, this guy's a kook. This guy is a pinhead. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So it wasn't just, when you came on and you said conservatives don't want to help be held accountable. I don't put him in the same. I know a lot of responsible conservatives that I can debate with all day, every day, that would not buy
I'll,
what he was trying to say. So I put him in a different category. Go ahead.
so this what I was about to say is this. One of the things that, and I agree with you, there are some conservatives, but then you know, yet and still, and this is what I challenge my other conservative brothers about, because I was like, hey man, look, whenever you know someone is speaking, let's just say for example, whenever we're talking viewpoints, and someone may say get off the plantation, right? I'm sure you probably heard that,
Okay.
you know, and I'm
Absolutely.
quick to say,
Absolutely.
and I quit to say, hey, look, do you realize that word in itself has racist connotations on it? I said, why do you allow your guests to speak these sort of things? Because plantation is not used when any other demographic with but African Americans. You know,
Well,
why do we use the victim? Why whenever we're talking about, oh, where you have the victim mentality, and I'll say, hey, well, wait a minute. I said, first of all, the victim mentality is about action. If I happen to see something going on in my community that needs to be addressed, yet and still, I go out every day. I strive to be 110%, to reach my fullest potential. That's not playing the victim. That is in no
well,
way
here,
because to
here,
me,
here.
whenever, if I'm able to see certain things that has happened that needs to be improved upon, and I raise my hand and say, hey, look, we need to have, let's just say, for example, policemen, right? If I live in an all black community, how come there's no outreach for more people within our community, you know, to be police so it can be representative of the community that you're in? And the minute that I say, hey,
Okay.
look, well, we do need police reform, we do need these things, automatically you're labeled the victim. And I'm like,
Okay,
wait a minute. Oh, go ahead.
let me interject because you're throwing a lot of points out. First point I will say in regards to the way the right views us, I'm gonna tell you, just being honest with you, even as a liberal, a lot of the criticism I get on this program comes from the left. I get called an Uncle Tom because I speak favorably of some of the Trump policies. I get called
Hmm.
sellout. I get called an Uncle Ruckus. So it's not all just coming from the left. There are plenty of folks on this program that identify as liberal that get in here and hear a black man that refuses to say all Republicans are bad or all liberals are good. And I get criticized heavily from the left. So it does come from both sides. Some of the other
I've gotten
issues
that
here.
too. I agree with you.
Yeah. So let's just not let wait a minute. So Rocky Bull 123 said that's because you're a conservative. How many of you folks? Let me. I'm gonna get back with you in the second stitch. How many of you folks in the comments say what you want? This is a no snowflake zone. Say what the fuck you feel. How many of you guys out there actually think yours truly, your humble correspondent right here? How many of you folks actually think that I am an actual conservative in hiding? Post your comments. I want to see this because I'm surprised that I see stuff like that. Stitch, go ahead.
So here's the thing that I would say, looking at your name, and again, I don't know your politics and that sort of thing. I think the reason why, you know, I think going off what you say, me and you are kind of in the same political spectrum. I call it like I see it. There's certain things that I think with the Democratic Party that I say, hey, look, this is extreme. You know, there's no way, say for example, there's no way we could, you know, should be teaching sexual education, you know, to inappropriate ages. And I agree with that. You know, that's something that I will call the left out for. And there are other things that I'll call the left out for that I say, you know, whenever you start getting into the whole terms as far as toxic masculinity, I do not believe that someone that was born a man should be able to compete in female sports. That's something that I do call out the left with. That is something that I am honest about. That again, like I say, accountability. Whenever I have the ability to call out the left, I've done TikToks. I called out Maxine Waters. I said what Maxine said during the time of the riots was dead wrong. And so the problem that I have with the right is the lack of accountability. Whenever we talk about certain things and why things were said, like one of the things that I always come up against. Let's talk about abortion. Say for example, they always tend to say, well, not well, some is that abortion is targeted toward blacks in genocide. Say that for example, and I'll say, well, that's not necessarily true. It's targeted toward more income based, not race based. You know, if whites or any other demographic were not meeting a certain median income, then Planned Parenthood would be set up shops in those neighborhoods. Period. Point blank. And so when I bring these things up, or say we go back in history, everyone talks about, let's talk about the party ship. Excellent example. So whenever I bring up the fact that, hey, I think the party shift did happen, and they say, well, no, it didn't, no, it didn't. I was like, well, wait a minute. We all know that back in the day, the majority of blacks were Republicans. That is a fact. So
Yeah.
now the majority of blacks are Democrats. Now, out of some strange science, apparently we're the only demographic that can shift parties. Somehow, some miraculous God thing happened that only affected African Americans for our abilities to change parties. So if we,
well, let me make it clear, and I absolutely am in the camp that the switch happened, but it's not just African Americans. If you look at the Confederates, the
no, I agree
Democrats
with
Party
you.
of Slavery, they also switched. The folks who
Right, that's my
support,
point.
yeah. So the switch is
Yeah,
obvious. The switch is
that's exactly
obvious.
my point. That's exactly my point. They were trying to say that the party switch didn't happen, but I'm saying the proof is right in front of your face. We did.
Yeah.
So if we did, what makes you think that someone else can't? And that is my whole point. It's the lack of accountability because I'll be honest with you, African Americans, if you look at our history, if you look at our social makeup within our communities, we are mostly conservative in our way of thinking. We are. We believe
You
in family.
I'm gonna give you the. I want to move on to another. I'm gonna give you the last word, but let me. In regards to what you just said, I say that all the time. When it comes to African Americans, we have a lot of shit that resonates with the Republicans. We grew up in the church. Most of us are religious, so that would have some linkage to the evangelicals if we could look at it that way. We have a lot of us are pro-life. All Democrats are not pro-choice. There's a whole lot of things about the Democratic Party that would resonate with Republicans, but they don't come out and talk to us. They don't campaign to our they don't campaign to our people. They look at us, well, you're not going to vote for us anyway. You only buy the liberal gravy train. You guys are sheep, and they don't come out and talk. But I do believe, hell, most of us got family members that served in the military, so plenty of us are
I do.
pro-military. I
I
really
do.
believe if they came out and talked to African Americans, and let me say this in favor of number 45. Despite what the African American community thinks of Trump, he did talk to black folks. He's the one that said, vote for me. What the hell do you have to lose? And regardless of how African Americans view Trump, he did get some of the best voting numbers from African Americans than,
He
say,
did.
Bush or Reagan or some of those folks. So I've said that all the time. They need to come out and speak to us. I'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
So what I want to say is this: number one, and I'll say if anyone who follows me knows what I said. My main problem wasn't with Trump. My main problem is with the followers of Trump. They did more disservice to Trump than Trump could ever do. I mean, they weren't accurate in some
Also,
of the things. Some of the rhetoric that came from the followers, it's not what even what's on Trump's agenda. You know, the whole thing about what, you know, if you didn't vote for Trump, you were for pedophilia. Trump chewing on that whole thing wasn't on his radar.
yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't about Trump's massive crusade to stop pedophilia, even though we all know that's a bunch of crock. We do know that. The other thing I would give Trump credit for, like I've always said, and here's the other thing that go back to what I have a problems with, the followers. Trump said that he's done more for black people more than any other president besides Lincoln. What happened? His followers took that and ran with it. I mean, oh yeah, let me use that tool because Trump said it. I'm gonna put it in my pocket, and whenever I debate it, I'm gonna take it out and I'm going to use it. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Well,
you know,
you do realize that with Trump's job numbers, and I'm not talking about for blacks, I'm talking about for the country as a whole,
mm-hmm.
4% unemployment rate. I'm willing to defend Trump on the metrics, and I will say this in regards to the jobs under the Trump administration. They helped out the country, and they ultimately helped out African Americans too. There were plenty of jobs available to African Americans under Trump. I'm not going to say that he did it specifically to help black people out. That's not the job of any president. But under Trump, there is some validity. What I'm trying to say, there is some
Well,
validity to the jobs numbers.
what I would say is this. What I was about to say is this. What I give Trump credit for was not dropping the baton. And when I look at the presidency,
Okay,
I look at
all
it,
right,
I look at it as a relay race. I pass
okay,
the baton off to you. Sometimes I could be behind the pack. Sometimes I could be ahead of the pack. I hand the baton off to you. It's your responsibility to keep us ahead. So the way
okay,
I look at it is like this: whenever someone says that he's did more for black people, and then they look at the Obama presidency as just complete trash, I'm like, well, wait a minute, how can that be? Because
yeah,
if you look at Obama and you go from 10.7% unemployment down to 4.5, and then boom, here, Trump, I got you to a good spot. Now don't lose our lead. And that's what I give Trump credit for, is the fact that he
okay,
did not drop the baton. And so when I
all
tell
right,
people that, oh no, 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 that can't be right. Trump did it by himself. I'm like, you've got to be ridiculous. That is,
okay,
to me, I'm
all right,
okay with having these sort of intelligent discussions. What I don't like is whenever someone tries to say, and the reason why I always say I have a problem with the followers more so than Trump, is that all of a sudden you would think that all the past years prior to him were just complete shit. And then Trump
yeah,
came in miraculously, did something so that we had three. And I'm like, come on, that's just not intelligent. There's
okay,
no way.
all
But
right,
anyway,
okay,
I said a
fair
lot.
enough. Okay, you good, you good. Hey, come on back through anytime. Let me just make it clear. Your last spiel there, I agree with most of that in regards to there are plenty of right wingers who believe the economy sucked under President Obama, and Trump just came and turned it into fucking heaven. And I do agree that when Trump inherited, if you look at Obama's numbers, Obama was inaugurated in January of 2009. And if you look at what happened when Trump took office in January of 2017, there's no doubt the Obama presidency was successful. But let me move the program on. Come on through anytime, man. We'll do it again any day.
All right. Okay, dude.
All right, you take care.
You got. I'm going to listen for the folks holding on. Give me a couple minutes. I just want to respond to a couple comments before you move on. Only in your I can't even pronounce that. Leftist feeble mind, says Rep 8319. There's some insult in that word, but your phantom I don't know what to say. Obama didn't do squat, says Mechanic Wolf. Hey, look, I hear the same shit from the liberals in regards to Trump. I'm gonna say the same response I say in regards to Trump. The numbers don't fucking lie. When you look at the economy that Obama inherited from George Bush, and you look at the economy he gave to Donald Trump, it is clear the Obama presidency was successful. You don't have to give him an ounce of fucking credit, but the numbers don't lie. That's the problem. Trumplicans aren't smart. I won't go that far and say that. The reason most POC didn't vote Republican is because white supremacists. Wait a minute. The reason most POC, I don't know what that means, didn't vote Republican is because white supremacist KKK is a far right thing. Well, I do agree that the KKK is a far right outfit, but I don't know about the rest of that stuff you have. Obama created low paying jobs, says Jason McAllister. You really think the jobs created under the Trump administration were high base jobs? I mean, really? Trump was just as much against the $15 an hour minimum wage as every other right winger. Trump bragged about creating jobs. He didn't brag about raising salaries. In fact, for you Biden haters out there, one of the things that Biden will be able to say is that under his watch, salaries have went up. Now, obviously, every fucking thing else has went up too, from gas to inflation. But under Biden, the salaries are going up. But no, under Trump, the salaries did not go up. So I disagree with that. The Bert is here.
I do see you. Donnie, I do. Raising salaries only raises the cost of goods, so it doesn't help. Hang on one second, Bert. In regards to that comment, saying Kelly Kemp, you saying, and I hear this often, particularly from if you raise salaries, everything else will go up. Okay, salaries have been kept stagnant for a long time, and stuff is still going up anyway. So I don't know if there's any benefit. Don't ever let someone tell you that you're better off getting paid less for them. That's all I'll say. The Bert, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? It's just Bert. Hey, I'm not gonna hold you long. I just stumbled onto you, man. I was trying to pin down Stitch, but I'm good. Say Stitch is a good guy, man. I know he's listening.
I
Stitch is a
like
good
Stitch.
guy.
I like Stitch.
I respect the
Listen,
heck out of him. Go ahead.
okay, before you get into your spiel, let me just say this, and I'm gonna let you go ahead and enlighten the audience. But before that, I meant no qualms about it. Who I am, you see the signs. I prefer talking to MAGA because I like to get the back and forth going. But liberals are absolutely welcome here. I enjoyed Stitch. A lot of my audience, the comments are going wild when Stitch is in here. But make no mistake about it, Stitch is welcome back anytime. Go ahead, Bert. Talk
You
to
see, if
us.
you look at the comments, you'll see a lot of other people are chasing Stitch around too. He's been running from a lot of us. Now,
Really?
I am no MAGA. I'm not what you call a MAGA head or anything like that. I'm what you might call a classical liberal. I'm a libertarian. I've been a libertarian for many decades. I'm not a centrist, but I'm a libertarian. I'm fiercely so.
Okay.
I appreciate your approach. I really do. I think if you're gonna judge a politician, judge them on the data that you have available and leave it there.
Absolutely.
And leave it there. Not about how you feel about him, not about what you think about his haircut. Judge him on the data. And I probably have been too harsh on Obama, and I'm going to relook that. But yeah, judge him on the data and let it go. There's not a whole lot they have power, they have influence over, but you can look at the data as a good metric for judging their performance. And I think that's a fair way to go about it. As far as I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing. One thing you said, the whole party switch thing. Here's the thing. Um, it wasn't until Bill Clinton that a Democrat was able to win the South. You realize that, right?
Okay. The switch goes well deeper than that, but go ahead.
It does, but you also have to look at the state legislature, right? In the South, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Whether you want to talk about Jimmy Carter, but Georgia, the state legislature, you have to look deeper and look at where exactly the state legislatures were, during this period of time that we're saying there was a switch. I'm not saying there was or there wasn't. I'm just saying a lot of us are being too simplistic about our analysis of that. That's all I'm saying. You know,
Well,
I,
let me
yeah,
let me give you Ryan Vasquez, appreciate those roses. Let me give you my spiel on the switch.
yeah, sure.
This is the way it's been taught to me. You guys can tell me to F off or whatever for those, because
No, I'm
there's
not
folks
gonna.
in the comments saying there's folks in the comments saying there was not.
Right.
I will say this. The way I was taught, I remember coming up as a kid, growing up in the 70s and 80s. My own grandmother, who obviously lived through the Civil Rights Act, most African Americans was in their house, two photos, one of
Hmm.
Martin Luther King and one of JFK. When the Democrats, this is what I've been taught, when the Democrats started entertaining, listening to MLK, working with Martin Luther King, when the Democrats started entertaining giving black civil rights, the racist Democrats, because the party was a party of racists, the Democrats was a racist party. The
Yeah.
racists in that party got pissed off at the notion that their president was willing to entertain working with Martin Luther King. They didn't go Republican. They wanted to still
Disagree.
maintain being Democrats, but they called themselves the Dixiecrats. So they still was supporting Dixie, and they still was calling themselves
When,
Democrats, but they were starting to
when,
ostracize from the Democrats. Go ahead.
when the Dixiecrats failed, where did those Democrats go? They went back to the
Republicans?
Democrat Party. No, they did not.
No.
Only two. Only two. Strom
Okay.
Thurmond. Yeah, there was that. That's the flaw in the logic, is that those Dixiecrats. There's only two that actually became Republicans.
So let me ask you this question then. Let
So
me
I'm,
ask
I'm
you
not
this
saying
question.
I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying we're about data, right?
Okay,
So
all right. Let's say you're right. I didn't hear it the way you're saying, but it looks like Ape Strong together is saying you're right. I never heard of that, but let me go with your. Let's say your method is right.
yeah,
You admit that the Republicans, I mean not the Democrats rather. You admit the Democrats were the party of slavery. They were the
the
original party of
Democrats
the
have
Confederacy.
always been a party focused on race and focused on segregation and focused on slavery. That's all. That's
So
their
let
whole
me
history.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. If the Democrats were originally the party of slavery and focusing on racism, which I'm not disagreeing, obviously the African Americans would be on the opposite side of the Democrats. What happened to make them all of a sudden now all vote Democrat? If there was no switch, why are they now all voting for the party that was known as the party of slavery and racism?
I think you can't talk about the one of the problems we're having. I don't have. I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't have a good answer to your question, but one of the problems that we're having is that we're trying to talk about the party switch and only focusing on black people because the party switch is more than just black people. You know that, but you know that
I
it's more
didn't,
than.
but wait a minute. I didn't focus only on black people. I just mentioned the
I'm,
Dixiecrats,
I'm,
and I
I'm speaking.
mentioned everybody.
I'm speaking more generally, not necessarily. That wasn't a personal
Okay,
thing. That was just like people
all
tend
right,
to do that, and there's more to
okay.
it than that. If you have to look at the black migration as well, like what were black people doing in the 40s through probably the 70s. I
Let
think
me
that's
ask.
the tail end of the
Let
Great
me ask you
Migration
this.
northward.
Let, let me ask you this real quick. This came from PNW Glow 72, and this is something I was on my mind, but I didn't get a chance to ask you. But I'll ask you in regards to his comment. Did Lyndon B. Johnson quote, "I will have black people voting Democrats for the next 200 years"? Have
That
you heard that comment?
Yes, I've heard that quote. That's a very famous
What
quote
is that in
in my
relation
circle.
to? What is that in relation to?
That's in relation to put it broadly. That's in relation to buying off the black vote. To yeah, with social programs. I think that's an argument for social programs. I think and things of that sort, encouraging black people to vote Democrat.
So you
For
don't.
a lifetime. Yeah,
So, so you don't believe Lyndon B. Johnson, who passed the Civil Rights Act, was you don't believe that's why blacks voted for him.
Lyndon
You
B.
believe it
Johnson.
was because of
Lyndon B.
entitlements
Johnson.
and buying a house?
Lyndon B. Johnson was always known to be a racist. You know that, right?
Yeah,
So
but
he
he
he,
also
he
passed the
signed that.
Civil Rights Act.
He signed that under. He certainly did. He signed that under duress. He did other things as well, but he signed that because he had to.
Doesn't
Now,
matter. Doesn't matter. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he had to. You're still going to get
fair,
credit for doing it.
fair enough. Did Democrats support the passage of that bill? Forget about
You said
Lyndon B.
what?
Johnson. What, did Democrats in the House support the passage of that bill that Lyndon B. Johnson signed? Did they support it? Were they fighting it, or did they filibuster?
Well, as far as I know, they didn't initiate it.
They
Just like
filibustered.
okay.
They
So
filibustered.
what you
That bill would
so
not
what
have
you
passed. That bill would not have passed by Republicans. That's just history.
okay. It doesn't matter. It was passed by a Democratic president. What I'm trying to get across to you is there is some reason why the Democrat Party was known as the party of slavery and racism and the Confederates, and now they're all being supported by black people. And it can't all just be
Sure,
because
sure,
they
sure.
gave folks welfare. A lot of folks in the audience are saying, well, Democrats only vote blacks because they give them welfare.
I mean,
It's definitely more
that's
educated voters out there than that.
I agree. That's probably too simplistic. But something has to be said for if there is a reliance on the state, you're going to vote for the party that you can rely on. And Republicans are not. You can't rely on conservatives to provide that sort of a safety net for you. That's what
Well,
part of the problem
that's
that
not.
leftists have.
Let me give it to you from an angle that you can tell me to f off or whatever. You may
I'm
not
never
agree
going to
with
say
this. Let
that.
me
I'm
give it.
never going to say that.
Let me. Well, I'm just joking, but let me give it to you from a different angle. You said that if somebody's giving you something, what happens is, and I hate to go this way with this audience because I tend to not to get too deep in the race, but what happens during the civil rights era if you're white and you know that the candidate you're choosing is not going to give African Americans rights. Now, keep in mind, if African Americans get equal rights, that means that when you go looking for a job, you now got to compete with a whole new group of people. So why would you want to invite all of that new competition? If I want to be a police officer, I don't have to worry about black people. They can't be this. Or if I want to be, if I want to be the head of city government, I know I don't have to compete with black folks. But now all of a sudden, you got a politician that's willing to legalize things and make it so that blacks can also, if you're white, voting for the politician that's not going to give them civil rights is essentially giving you something. He's giving you an edge. So when you say
Interesting.
Democrats give blacks entitlements, if you got somebody who was not giving blacks civil rights, he's also giving you something as a white person. Some would refer to that as privilege, but I'm not going to go too deep in it. I just want to throw that out there and see if you understood that angle.
I understand the angle. I mean, I think it's an interesting angle. It's not something I wouldn't say f off to it. I think it's an interesting angle. It's certainly if you put yourself in the period of the 40s, 50s, 60s or whatever. Like the mindset of which say an average Joe Snow white guy. What would his thought process be? Yeah, that's possible. Absolutely, that comes into the politics of it at the ground root level. I mean, I buy that. I absolutely buy that. I absolutely buy
Okay.
that.
The
So
reason
one of the things.
go ahead, go ahead.
So one of the problems I have with we talked about like giving black people rights, which of course that's a great thing. But there's other things that we did around the edges that I think were problematic. Is we started to treat as a country, not we, but as a country, we addressed many symptoms and didn't address a lot of some root causes. With regard to like our family structure got messed up in the late '60s, and '70s, and I think it's because we were addressing symptoms and not and not we were addressing symptoms, not sustaining successes like the family, and we weren't addressing root causes of problems. And I think that's part of the problem that we have today. Is that we spend too much time addressing symptoms and not enough time addressing root cause.
You're talking about the nuclear family.
I am.
Okay.
And I think
I
that's a
don't
strong.
have a problem with that. I
Of
don't have
course
a
you don't.
problem with that.
Of course you don't.
Okay.
Well, because if you did, that would defeat. Like you already said, that black people. I've heard this before all my life. That black people inherently, socially, have always been conservative. So you really couldn't disagree with what I said because, of course, we're the same in that respect.
Good point. Good point. I concede that. I do
All
concede
right.
that. The only thing
Well,
we would have, listen, I
oh,
think, you're Bert, you're a good caller. I think the only thing we have a separation on is probably the way we view the switch. Other than that, I don't think you and I differ on a whole lot here.
well,
Now,
you know
you
what?
are a libertarian, you said, right?
I
You're a
am.
libertarian, so
I am.
you're smack in the middle. Um, do you believe in smaller government or no government?
Oh, it depends on the day of the week. Typically, for polite society, oh, but this is funny. For polite society, I tell them I want limited government. I want government to not intrude on me at all. Now, if I'm in a bad mood, you might hear me talking about building a shack in the woods in North Carolina and telling you to get the fuck out of my business. So I go to
Okay.
different extremes. I do not like. So let me put this distinctly, the way I normally do it. I loathe the left and how they want to control the way I think about certain things. I also loathe the right when they want to tell me how they want me to live my life. I don't like either one of them. I don't like either one of them. I want to be left alone, and I will
I
bloody
like
a man who tries to
I
infringe on my liberty.
let me just tell you something. I like you. I really fucking like you because you're giving a really fair assertion. I'm waiting when I hear you point out the negatives of the left to see if there's any counterpoints. And you came right with it as smooth as fucking butter. I like you, man. I like you a lot. You might be a libertarian. I might be, I may be a liberal, which means we're probably not going to vote the
Well,
same way on election day. But
yeah, sure.
I really like your spiel. Definitely.
All right.
Definitely. I like you, man.
I like you too. Let me get
Okay.
off here. I already gave you a follow. I'll see what you're about. Be blessed, my friend.
Come on back anytime. You said you do lives as well?
I haven't done them in a while. I'm going to start doing them again probably next week.
All right. Feel free to send me a DM or something like that, and your boy will be right there with you. Good combo. Good
Absolutely.
back and forth. All right. Take care, man. Take care.
Really like that. Okay, UBI 2060. Before you come in, let me see. I live
the way I want to. You have, hang on, UBI. You have to live every day like it's your last because it might be. I want to say in Forest Fire, in regards to in my deepest Vin Diesel voice, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. That's what I'm thinking of when I hear that. How are Republicans trying to control your life by saying go live how you want, think what you want. The skipper. In regards to our last caller, you're asking, well, how are Republicans trying to control your life? Well, there's a whole lot of answers I could give. First of all, they're trying to tell women they don't have a right to choose. They're trying to tell teachers that if they want to teach CRT, whether they want to or not, they can't. They're trying to tell folks if you actually want to teach sexual issues in school, like the LGBT community. And I'm not defending either side of this. I'm just saying every parent should have a right, every school district should have a right to teach their students what they want. In the state of Florida, for instance, Governor DeSantis passed a blanket law What if you're in Jacksonville, a predominantly minority community, and you believe that CRT is okay to teach, the Jacksonville School Board? What if they want to teach that? Well, the governor has banned everybody in the damn state. So you've taken away a lot of people's rights. So when you ask, how do Republicans try to control people's lives? There you go. And I can come with a lot of other issues. UBI, good evening. What's up?
What's going on? I just want,
As usual, you the man, you the man.
yeah, I just wanted to come in and ask when did the party switch? I'm trying to like get a. I'm not. I try to find the exact date. When the party switched.
There is no exact date. It would be just like saying, when did America become a non-racist country? We know that we live in a post-racial country right now. We know America's not ran in 2022 like it was ran in 1922. But if I tell you, give me a date when it stopped happening. No, it's a gradual thing. Just because you pass legislation does not change hearts and minds. Some folks have to die out and take their beliefs with them. In regards to this party switch, it's the exact same thing. Members got fed up with that party and started gradually switching to the other party. So there is no exact date, but it's a legitimate question. Go ahead.
So black people used to be Republican, and as Stitch said, and they switched to Democrat.
Well,
Uh,
the Democrats used to be the party of slavery. So it comes to no surprise that the blacks wouldn't support the Democrats. I
mm.
mean, they were the party that endorsed slavery.
Wait, so before, so was it only the Democrat that were party of slavery, or was it both parties?
Well, the slavery was predominantly in the South, and that's not to say there wasn't slavery in the North, but the South actually fought to keep slavery legal. They
Yeah,
fought to actually secede from the United States. So the Democratic Party of the South were the ones who were fighting to keep slavery in perpetuity. Not to mention, even after slavery ended, when you look at how the South continued to treat blacks, long after slavery ended, it is pretty clear that the Southern Democrats had no tolerance at all for African Americans. Go.
yeah. So what happened? Like, why is the right now? Like, why is the South mostly, and if you consider the South like Texas, Florida, do you consider that part of the South, right?
The Bible Belt. Yeah, they're the Bible Belt states. From
Yeah,
Texas to Florida up to, I suppose, Missouri on over. So Missouri, Illinois is not left, but I would say up to about Missouri on over to the Atlantic Ocean. So kind of in that area. The Bible Belt states is what they're called. But go ahead.
yeah. And then, how do they vote? Would you say the South is more uh Democrat or more Republican? Like
With
currently?
the except with the exception of Georgia, which just went blue all of a sudden, the South is blood
Yeah,
red. Let me say it this way: all of the former slave states, with the exception of Georgia, and I guess Virginia's kind of moved back and forth, but with the exception of Georgia, all of the former slave states vote Republican in 2022.
okay. So why they voting? Why are they Republican? Um, is it because of the party switched, or um, I don't know? They decided they're Republican are better. Like, I'm trying to understand this.
Well, this is where we were talking about me and the last two callers. We were talking about JFK, John Kennedy, when he started working with Martin Luther King was causing a ruckus, even though folks were really trying to sweep Martin Luther King under the rug. He was making a really big, kind of like what Black Lives Matter is doing. A lot of the shit that has been going on with police and those complaints have been there for years. What Black Lives Matter is complaining about in 2022, blacks were complaining about the same stuff in 1962, but they were more effective at it not really coming to fruition. Black Lives Matter has made it so that, particularly with cameras, that it cannot be denied. Well, the same thing happened with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King made it so that there was no way to keep denying what was going on in the South. So President Kennedy, feeling
Yeah.
sympathy for how a lot of Northern constituents, Northern voters were concerned with the stuff that the way blacks are being treated down South, to answer to his constituents, he started working with Martin Luther King to try to change some of the things they were doing in the South that they had been doing undercover. And ultimately, even though JFK was assassinated, he was working on giving black civil rights. His predecessor, Lyndon B. Johnson, who took over after his assassination, granted what JFK was working on and gave black people civil rights. And as a result, black people, seeing that Democrats were willing to give civil rights, switched parties. And a lot of folks who did not want blacks to have civil rights switched the other way. They went to the Republican Party. A lot of folks disagree that happened. Hey, we can talk about that all day, every day, but that is the way that I strongly believe it took place, and that's the way that his history suggests. But there are folks who will tell you it never happened. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you think Martin Luther King is Democrat or Republican? Well, what do you think?
I
Oh,
think that Martin Luther
neither.
King would have worked with anyone that was willing to give black folks civil rights. Kind of like what when Trump first came in, folks was claiming that Trump was a racist. And there were some black people like Steve Harvey, I believe, obviously Kanye West, rapper. There were several folks who were stating that if he's willing to work with us and help us out, I don't give a shit what party he's with. And those folks did ultimately get criticized, and they kind of separated themselves from Trump. But I believe Martin Luther King was the exact same way. He didn't care what party he represented. If you were willing to give him a listening ear and actually work with him on all of the atrocities that were taking place, he didn't care what party you were in.
Okay, yeah. Because I think it was like he wasn't loyal to one or the other party, and he didn't like make it public. Oh, I'm a Democrat. Oh, I'm a Republican. But I know I was just looking it up that it was a Democrat president who signed on the civil rights bill, right?
Yeah, Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah. So uh why so like why wasn't a Republican president, sign out, try to give civil rights to you said they were opposed. Why were they opposed?
Why wasn't there what? I don't get that. What did you say?
You said they were opposed uh on civil rights. Why was that?
Well, you don't if you have control of the country, you don't want to share power. I mean, let's just be real. Like I say, this is a racial question, so I'm going to tackle it. I don't normally get too deep into this, but I will say this: if you were white at the time, you had a guarantee that for the most part, all of control of the country was in your care. You didn't have to share it with other groups of people. So it was a power move. It was a financial move because African Americans up to that point had been marginalized. They couldn't live in certain neighborhoods. They couldn't go to certain schools. By giving black civil rights, you now are making it so that white people have to compete with blacks for things that they normally just were entitled to. You talk about entitlements, they were automatically entitled to this stuff. If you went as a white person and competed with a black person to get a job, you were automatically entitled to get that job. You knew right after he walked out of the interview, hell, if it's only me and him, I'm getting this job. He has no chance in the world. So there were certain entitlements that they lost by giving black civil rights. Go ahead.
Mm, okay, I understand. And and currently, I say either people in the South or North that support the Confederate flag. Um, do you think they're mostly on the right or on the left? And I talked to a few of them, but they were more right leaning.
There is very little tolerance for the Confederate flag on the left. If you find someone who is in support of the Confederate flag, I would say it's
Yeah.
probably an 85 to 90% chance that they are either a libertarian or they lean right. Finding a Democrat, open Democrat, left leaning person that supports the Confederate flag, that's like a needle in a haystack. It's mostly right wingers.
Yeah, and I've talked to them, and they told me that's not the real Confederate flag, and
No, it's a
they
battle flag.
they
It's
have,
it's the
yeah,
battle flag. It's the
yeah, and
battle
then
flag.
yeah, and then they support it mostly because the, I don't know, like history, and uh, it's not racist to them, supporting that flag, which find it interesting how they have that mindset.
Well, in regards to why they're waving the flag, I say this even in regards to folks saying that Biden or Trump is a racist. At the end of the day, I don't know what's in somebody's heart. If you're waving the flag because it's your family heritage, I'm not going to say you're a racist or not. I will just say if you are waving the Confederate flag in 2022, you are insensitive as fuck. I will just say that. In 2022 that the Confederate flag has been adopted by, for the most part, every white supremacist organization out there. Now, I will say this. If the Confederate flag is something you hold dear to your heart due to your ancestry, you should react to white supremacists adopting that flag the same way you would react to an athlete taking a knee during the anthem of the national flag. If you don't have a problem seeing a white supremacist wearing that Confederate flag, if you really love that flag, you really honor your heritage, you really consider yourself a rebel, and you don't speak out when you see a white supremacist committing an act of crime or something with that flag on it, you have to realize he is hurting your cause. It's no different than if I support Black Lives Matter, but I'm okay with them rioting and looting. You have to understand they are hurting the cause. They're hurting the cause. If you don't speak up, it's not going to be long before they lose all credibility. And that is what has happened with the Confederate flag. Go.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the comment of someone. I think it was the previous guest. They said, I think his name is Christian West. He said, "Now one Confederate soldier owned slave." Well, what do you have to say about that?
It doesn't matter. They were fighting for that. It's a lot of things that America does in other countries. Or, okay, a good example would be what's going on with the Ukrainians and Russians. The
Mm.
actual Russian citizens, the soldiers that fight in Russia, they're not going to take out biolabs. They're not going to inherit any of the wealth, but they're fighting for it to happen. The Confederates, you're suggesting they didn't own slaves. No, but they're fighting for it to continue. And in addition to that, I still have to point out when you look at the way the Confederate States treated African Americans after they were told to leave them alone, they're free now. When you look at the way they continue treating African Americans, it's pretty clear they had nothing good in store for African Americans. I mean, the Martin Luther King era, when he was down in the South fighting for civil rights for Black people, that's like 100 years after slavery ended. So 100 years later, they were still treating them that bad. So it's pretty clear that the Confederate States never had anything good in store for Black people. They had to be forced by two different presidents 100 years apart to treat these folks respectfully. First, Abraham Lincoln in the mid 1800s. Then you got Lyndon B. Johnson in the mid 1900s. They had no tolerance at all, no love at all for Black folks. I think that is a historical fact beyond any type of debate. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you think they have the First Amendment right to fly, that flag, no matter who they offend?
Yes, I do. I believe you had the First Amendment right to fly the flag of ISIS, to fly the flag of Al Qaeda right in front of World Trade Center. But there's going to be consequences to doing it. But you do have a First Amendment protected right to walk down to the World Trade Center, or Ground Zero now, what they call it, and walk around with a big ass Al Qaeda flag. You may find yourself getting your ass kicked by a lot of people, but legally, you have the right to do it.
And you think you have the right to burn the American flag, or like not stand up for the Pledge of Religion?
All of that has been adjudicated by the Supreme Court. They've already stated that if you own that flag, I mean, let's just be real. If I go out to Walmart and I buy some yarn or I buy some thread and I knit me an American flag with thread that I purchased, you're going to tell me I can't set that on fire? That's my product. I own that. Of course you can burn the American flag. I don't like it. I don't agree with it no more than I agree with somebody waving a Confederate flag. But I will stand there and say you have a First Amendment protected right to do that.
Okay, so what about Walmart? That's what happened to Walmart. There was a guy, he walked in with I think it was a Confederate flag, and he was banned from Walmart. Do you think private company have that right, or do you think that's you know taking away that man's First Amendment?
I'm not a fan of it. But at the end of the day, like I said, being the type of host I am, I have to be able to see both issues. And I'm not a fan of Walmart banning him for his First Amendment, exercising his First Amendment rights. However, I will say this: anybody that supports banning of a citizen walking in Walmart with a Confederate flag, but expects Colin Kaepernick to be able to take a knee. If you're against folks exercising their First Amendment rights, you got to be against it across the board. And that also applies in reverse. If you want a person to be able to legally walk into Walmart with a Confederate flag, then you should also want an athlete take rights as well. I'm for First Amendment rights across the board, not just when somebody is saying what I want to hear. Anja, thank you for those gifts. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and then so is that the same thing with Twitter or Facebook? Kind of banning people for free speech. Limiting their free speech. Do you have the same exact opinion on that?
Oh, absolutely. Shout out to Elon Musk. I really think what he's doing is a good thing. But I will say this. I believe that if Elon Musk, now that he's purchased Twitter, if he opens it up, keep in mind, Twitter is open up to folks of all ages. What's going to ultimately end up happening is you're going to have the liberals trying to find a way to get them. And here's how I think it will happen. You'll have They'll find some student in some obscure point of America that has been bullied by a lot of classmates on Twitter, and they've either talked about taking their lives or maybe actually did it. And what they will ultimately probably do is try to pass laws stating that you can say whatever you want online, but you have to have your actual government photo attached to your profile. You can't be calling folks all kinds of names and you got a picture of a cat as your profile picture, or you got some kind of obscure name. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you having free speech. But if you absolutely have to be held accountable and have to own up to your comments, I prefer it that way. I don't have any problem with it, though.
All right, let me ask you a last question. In
Go for
terms
it.
of disinformation, do you think people should be held accountable for that? I know it's free speech, but say if you give out like the wrong information and cause someone to lose their life or to get in danger or whatever, do you think that person should be held accountable
One
or
hundred
is
percent, one hundred
protected?
percent. That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent. Not to interrupt you too much, but 100%. That's the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded theater. If you get online and say right now at the school down the street there's somebody shooting up students, and you're just doing that so that they'll cancel school and you won't have to go to class. Yeah, you should be held accountable for telling a lie like that online that could create chaos. So yeah, I would say yes.
Well, I appreciate you having me on and answering all my
Absolutely.
questions.
100%. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. Come on back anytime, man.
Okay, the man it is. The man it is. The one who always gives me the hardest time there is.
100%. Facts hurt Republican for the Harris Jordan. What am I getting wrong tonight?
Okay, so I just want to say a few quick points. Uh, you mentioned kneeling for the flag and the national anthem and all that. Tim Tebow kneeled
Yeah.
for Tim Tebow kneeled for God and was kicked out of the NFL also. So you can't say that there should be free speech for one, but not free speech for another when it comes to kneeling.
Tim Tebow was not kicked out of the
Yes,
NFL.
he
What's your
was.
next point?
Yes,
No,
he
he
was.
was not.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
He was
Tim
released
Tebow is
for
still a
he was
Tim Tebow
released
to this
for
day.
causing a problem.
Tim Tebow to this day still actually he's the announcer for NFL games. He still works for the NFL.
Okay, but what team does he play for?
He's
Okay, so what?
retired,
So what?
man.
Okay, so he did not retire. He literally
Okay.
kept trying out for teams.
Okay.
He was literally lobbying for teams to hire him, just like Colin Kaepernick. So
Okay.
you
I
can't have
listen.
one and then vouch for the other. It's either
Okay,
both
but
or none.
the comments are going crazy with people saying that you're wrong on this. Okay,
Okay, well then,
I'll
okay,
do.
fine. Then Colin Kaepernick wasn't kicked out of the NFL either. He was released.
Okay. What's your
Okay,
next point? What's your
so
next point?
like I was saying earlier about voter registration numbers. So for 2022 for the primaries, we are seeing a huge increase of voters that are switching parties, or Republicans just surging with new registrations. So in Arizona, which is my state, um, 3,093 new voter registrations for Republicans just this
Okay.
year. Just this year, Democrats have only gained 539
Okay.
in the entire state of Arizona. Democrats have only gained about 539. Now,
Let me
when you look
go ahead. Go
when
ahead.
you
Go ahead.
when you look at Pennsylvania, Democrats that switched to Republican was 22,409. Republicans that switched to Democrat was only 2,666. So when you look at the numbers, you're seeing a trend that people are tired of the Democratic Party and they are going to the reasonable party.
Okay. Let me respond to that. I'll just say this. I mean, you've been following politics. We both been following politics for several administrations. The polls, the numbers suggested Hillary Clinton was going to win. In 2020, there was this huge walkaway movement where African Americans were going to vote for Trump. I'm not saying what you're saying is incorrect. It could be correct. I'm just going to say that I have seen it all before and it did not end up happening like that. We'll talk about what you're saying on election day. You may be right, but I'm just saying I have seen folks say this is definitely going to happen, and on election day it did not
Right.
happen.
But these aren't polls though. These are registration for party. These are voter
Okay.
registration numbers. This is not
Okay.
polls. This is not me saying that this is definitely going to happen. All I'm saying is that with the voter registration numbers provided by the state, not party, the state, the Republicans are gaining huge numbers that they've never had before.
Okay. Well, like I said, we'll talk about it on election day. You may be right. Let me ask you this question in regards to a comment. Because you said the reasonable party. Looks like Mike Heffenman or something like that. 940 said the reasonable party. He has in quotes. What do you think about this comment? The reasonable party attempted a coup, incited an insurrection, and tried to overthrow our government. What do you think about that comment?
If we wanted to overthrow the government would have been overthrown. People were let in, which is a proven fact, by a judge because now two cases have been acquitted and people have been literally, the cases have been thrown out because two different federal judges have now said that people were let into the Capitol. Now, people were did violence happen? Yes. Was it a mostly peaceful protest, as people like to call other certain protests that occurred during previous summers? Yes, absolutely. It was a mostly peaceful protest. Were there scattered issues of violence? Sure, of course there are. You're going to have those at volatile protests where
What
people
about
are
the calling?
speaking their mind.
What about the you said a mostly peaceful protest. What about the presence of a gallows and folks walking through the halls of the Capitol building suggesting taking the life of the vice president? What do you think about that?
Well, we've talked about that, right? There, there. It was not a physical representation. It was not an actual gallows. It was just a representation. It was a symbol of a gallows. It was a small scale model. It was not something that people could have actually done anything. Now, it is
A
proven.
small
It is
scale
proven.
model. That's
Hang on.
new.
It is proven that when somebody did get close to Mike Pence, she was shot and killed because that Secret Service agent that shot and killed Ashley Babbitt was a Secret Service agent assigned to Vice President Mike Pence.
Okay. So let me see somebody say. Don said, I'm a big Trump supporter, and I feel he should have been more careful with his words. I'm in that same camp with you, Trump. But I will say this, Harris. I had to laugh when you said that the Gallo was a small scale model. I have never heard it explained like that. I thought that was pretty damn funny. So if they had had a larger Gallo, you would have taken it more serious. But a small scale model is okay.
Yes, because context matters, right? So
No,
I can carry around a noose that is like a fake rope or just a representation of a noose with it not actually connected to anything. Is it still a gallows, or is it
you
just a
are you
noose
a
as a
lawyer?
physical representation? I'm
Are
asking
you?
you an actual question.
Let me before I answer that question, let me give a shout out to Jesse Smollett. It wasn't attached to nothing. I
Right,
don't
and he
know
put
where
it
to
on himself.
I don't know where to go with the small Gallo comment. If you show up to the Capitol building threatening to take the life of the vice president, in my opinion, you don't even need a Gallo to be considered as a hostile party. You're a hostile party just from what's coming out of your mouth. The fact that you actually erected a Gallo makes it even worse. But what's coming out of your mouth should be bad enough.
Okay, but were they tried? Were they arrested and tried for those threats? Yes, they were. And what happened to them?
I
They
think
got their
most of them.
sentence and they served their sentence. The vast majority of them got like a month in jail.
Let me tell you this in regards to that. And you're right about the fact that most of them are not going to serve a lot of jail time. This is where I know a lot of my audience, my favorite audience, my MAGA folks are going to probably disagree with me. But I believe that there was a lot of luck there in place that day. I think if any one of them protesters had showed up by themselves as a single lone person and did what they did as part of that mob, they would all been probably shot or serving years in prison. But because it's a
Okay.
bunch of them, they got away with mob mentality. Similar to
Okay.
Black Lives Matter.
So
I'm not going to
so
argue that Black
so
Lives Matter don't get away with that stuff too. But I'm just
so then
saying, similar to that, I believe they got away with a lot of felonies that if they had showed up individually or in a much smaller group, they would have served a lot of prison. Like Ashley Babbitt, for instance. There are folks who are suggesting that that was not a justifiable shooting. And there's no way in the world I can look at that and say, ask any other question other than what was he supposed to do? Just let her climb through and walk past him? And what was he supposed to do? But go ahead.
okay. So then Kathy Griffin, Snoop Dogg, Madonna, Johnny Depp, and Ashley Judd all should have been arrested and charged with threatening the president. By your logic.
No, it's a little bit different. I
It's
understand the
not.
point you're
It is
trying.
absolutely not different.
No,
It is
yeah, it is.
100% the same.
No, it's not. No,
Because
it's not.
because how is it different?
Let me explain. If I tell you, okay, right now we're online talking to each other. If I pull out a knife and say I'd have stabbed the hell out of you, that's a lot different than if I'm standing in front of you saying that. Ashley Judd was the folks you're mentioning, none of them were probably 1,000 miles within the president. This guy is on the lawn. Some of these folks are in the Capitol building right near the people. The Secret Service is ushering the vice president out as quickly and as hastily as possible. Nobody ushered Trump out when Kathy
But that's
Griffin
what they
held up her
do
hand.
every time there is a security breach, though. That is nothing out of the ordinary.
You're saying what happened with Vice President Pence being ushered out is nothing under the ordinary.
No, that is what happens during a security breach. What happened when BLM breached the White House walls and Trump had to go into the basement, into a secure
If
location?
Okay, then now what you're
Tell me
saying makes
that.
me wonder. What?
Tell me about that.
Well, I'm
Tell
I'm
me how that's
responding to your
okay.
I'm responding to your first comment. We'll get to that, but I'm responding to your first comment, which is if they acted that way and according to you it's a security breach, how can you have a security breach during a peaceful protest where everybody's invited in
No, no, no,
according
no,
to
no.
you?
No, no, no. No, I called it exactly what they called a BLM protest, a mostly peaceful protest. Mostly peaceful.
What is
And I did say
what
that
is
there was
mostly?
a smattering of violence. I don't know. That's what they called a BLM protest, so I called it the same exact thing. A mostly peaceful
To me,
protest.
that's like me and my boys breaking in your house and saying it's mostly invited guests. or mostly uninvited. Where does mostly? Unless if you just want to get back at BLM, we can.
Go watch the news. Go watch the news. That is what they called the summer riots. Mostly peaceful protests. That is what they called the
Is it
burning
possible?
of a historical church in Washington D.C. A mostly peaceful protest. So
Let
did the
me ask
Capitol
you.
burn down? Did the Capitol get caught on get did it catch on fire? No. So it was mostly peaceful. I don't give a damn
Let me
what
ask you
anybody
this.
else says about anything else that happened.
Harris, let me ask you this question. Is it possible, particularly when talking to conservatives, right wing, or my favorite audience, MAGA, is it possible to ever discuss the Capitol building by itself without bringing up previous activities? It's
Yes,
like when
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk
we
about
have
it. Do
never
you,
done that.
and I'm going to mention, yes, we have. I am going to say this for the umpteenth time on here with you. Do you know why the government, the Congress, was so upset about January 6th? This is why. Because they saw how quickly, with the snap of a finger, they can lose their power. How quickly the people can take over the people's house. That's what they're upset about. That
Okay,
they are literally at our fingertips. Their power can go away with the snap of our finger. Black, white, Asian, Mexican, it doesn't matter. Us, the people of the United States, can take away their power at any second. That's why they're pissed off.
so you believe they're pissed off because the protesters showed them they could have their power lost at any second, and the idea that they're claiming that they feared for their lives, you don't think that had anything to do with them being pissed off?
You know what? I don't care that they feared for their lives. You know
Oh,
why? Because,
oh,
hang on, because our lives hang in their balance. They are also in charge of our lives. They are causing things that are literally detrimental to our lives, your life right now. They are literally making policies that are ruining our bank accounts, that are destroying food markets. They are literally destroying the economy.
okay. Well, I think that you, like I say, this is a no snowflake zone, and I invite folks to speak their mind. I think when you said you had no concern of the fact that they fear for their lives, you were
You
being
know
as
why?
bluntly
Because
honest as you could.
they have more armed guards than you and I do. They have more ammunition and more guns around them than I have in the back seat of my truck right now behind me.
None of that, none of that defends your explanation that I don't care that they were in fear of their lives. That's just basically I had no sympathy for our government.
I
That's what
don't
you're
have sympathy for
okay.
our government. Do you know why? Because they represent us. Without us, they are nothing. That's why.
Okay,
We
but that
vote them
doesn't.
in.
You're talking about people believing that they were going to die, and you're coming back where they're hurting my pocketbook. That's your response to that. Is that they're doing things
No,
that affect my
no.
bank account? So
They are taking away my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That is what they are doing. They are bastardizing our Constitution. They have been for the last 15 years.
okay, I listen.
More than
We're
any time
not
in history, they have been for the last 15 years. And
okay.
they needed the wake-up call. And that's
My
exactly what it was. You can call
so
it
you
treason, you can call it whatever you want. That was a wake-up call to our Congress that we the people have the power, not them.
so the wake up call was either you take care of me the way you should, or I'm going to take your life. That's the wake up call.
No. It's it's save my rights, protect my rights, or I take your job.
That wasn't what they.
Nobody knows what would have happened. You don't know that anybody's life would have been taken in there. You don't
There was
know that.
nobody.
And
Listen,
for you to say that any of them were going to take the life of a sitting congressperson, that is unfair because you don't know that.
Harris. Nobody amongst those protesters were marching through the halls of the Capitol building talking about taking people's jobs. They actually were saying they
You mean
wanted to take
calmly
someone's life.
walking?
They
You mean
actually,
calmly walking in an
Harris,
organized fashion?
Harris, you're not letting me respond to you. The people are on video yelling, and they're not yelling about taking people's jobs. They're yelling about taking people's lives. It's on video.
Okay, then what about the Democrats that surrounded Republican congressmen in Washington, D.C., literally threatening to kill them?
You said, what about Democrats surrounding Governor Whitmer in Michigan over the mask mandate? That happens.
No, 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 no,
That
no, 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 no,
happens.
no, 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 no. I asked, what about the Democrats surrounding Rand Paul, all the other Republican congressmen, Congress people, and literally saying, kill yourself. We're going to kill you. You're going to be lucky if you get home. Kill your family. We're going to get your daughters. They literally said that. It's on tape. Go watch it.
Let me respond exactly to what you just asked me. If that happened, and I've never seen that, but I'm not going to say it didn't happen because I'd
Of
never seen it,
course
but
you
I
haven't
didn't see it.
seen it. It's crazy
Do
that
you
you
want me to
haven't
answer
seen
your question, or do
all of
you,
these things. All of these things that
Harris?
happen. It's amazing that you haven't seen it.
Harris, do you actually want me to answer your questions, or do you just want to continue talking? I'm trying to figure out which one. In regards to your question, just you're right. I haven't seen it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen because I have not seen it. I'm just simply saying if what you're saying is true, they should have been arrested. That is my answer to your question. If what you're saying is true
But
about
but they weren't.
Ryan, it's what?
But they weren't.
Okay, then that's a failure. Just like I believe there's some failures that took place with the Capitol Police on January 6th. First of all, if they weren't arrested, like you're saying, that's a failure on the badges, on the police, on the law enforcement officers that were around during that time. Just like I believe on January 6th. Any police officer that let those folks in after they already had a gallows on the lawn claiming a hang might. If you're a cop and you let them in, that's a failure. You just called it yourself a security breach. So during a security breach, you got some people breaching the building, and then you got cops on the other side letting them in. That's a failure of security on both sides. Go.
Okay, so if burning a flag is freedom of speech, then having a gallows wherever you want is also freedom of speech. Yes?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay,
You
okay,
can't threaten.
then you are completely contradictory because you cannot
No.
say, no, 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 no. Don't give me the whole thing about, oh, it's a threat. No, because nothing was explicitly written on there that says, I'm going to do this, right? Because people can say, I have this. But people can also say, I'm burning the flag because I want to kill the entire government.
I don't listen. What you're saying at this point is
You're saying that you are okay with one side doing one thing, but you are not okay with another side doing another thing. That is literally what you're saying, and
okay.
it's ridiculous and concerning.
I will just say this. Based on what you're saying right now, I strongly believe I could land on the moon and create a Hubble telescope and set it on its highest level, and I still would not be able to see where you're at. You're that far out there right now. I don't know where to go with this. You're comparing
But
flag
I'm
burning to
no,
erecting a
I
new
am
sort of Capitol building.
no, I'm showing the hypocrisy in everything. Right? You
Okay.
can't say that it is okay for one side to surround sitting Congress people and tell them that they
I
are going
didn't.
to be murdered in the street of Washington, D.C., but it is not okay for people to say, we don't agree with what happened in this election and we want you to hear about it. That is
Okay.
hypocrisy. You cannot say that it is okay for people to go and burn down a church in Washington, D.C., but not to stand on the steps of a state capitol and say, we don't agree what you're doing with our constitutional rights.
Okay. Now
That is
the
what you're
set. Now
saying.
well, I guess that's what you're hearing, but I've never said it's okay to burn down a church or anything that I made it clear. Black Lives Matter does a lot of shit that I think is illegal. I said it on every broadcast. I don't know how you're putting it in my mouth that I somehow side with them, but I asked you earlier, is it possible to talk about what happened at the Capitol building without going to Black Lives Matter? And I don't know if it's possible to do that, but what I'm simply saying to you
Right,
is
because the
comparing.
left set the precedent of allowing it to happen. That's why.
Okay.
That's
All
the
right. All
hypocrisy.
right.
So
Okay.
you can't say that it is okay to storm the Oklahoma State Capitol in defense of one ideology, but it is not okay to storm the federal Capitol in support of a different ideology. It is
Okay.
either
I don't
all
know.
okay or none of it is okay.
Okay. I don't know where to go when you start comparing flag burning to actually threatening to kill the vice president. I don't know where to go with that. I honestly don't. I don't even have a rebuttal for that. That's so far away from where we're at. I don't even listen. I got somebody else. I'll let you wrap it up, man. I gave you your time to get your point across. We disagree once again. That's not a surprise, but go ahead and wrap it up. I don't know where to go with that, man.
All right, so I'm just going to wrap up with this. Roe v. Wade is over, and the country is going to burn.
I don't know about the country burning, but I do agree with you. Roe v. Wade is in danger. Come
It's
on
not
back
in
anytime.
danger.
I
They've already
love.
said it's done. The decision is going to come out
Wow.
next month.
Oh well, the country might burn. All right, man. Have a good.
All right.
I guess have a good evening after that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk next time, Harris. Appreciate that, Maguro. Listen, Harris puts me through the rigor every time we talk. Harris never takes it easy on me, but like I make it clear to you folks, and I see you out there, Big Jake. I do see you, Big Jake, so give me a minute. But let me make it clear, like I said, it's a no snowflake zone. I know Harris is not going to go easy on me. I know that. He never does. And I invite that man to come on here and bring it. And he absolutely never disappoints. I saw a lot of you folks how you were responding to his comments, and that's fine. And I will say this in defense of Harris. I think tonight he might have been a little bit off my level, but I will say last night I believe he hit me pretty hard. He made some really good points. I think he got me last night. I had a hard time sleeping after talking to that man. I like Harris. Harris represents the red. You know that's my favorite audience. All right, let's go to the next caller. Harris, you always welcome back. Big Jake, the modern colonizer, I do see you. Harris
Was our house is P&O Glow. Okay. Big Jake, what's up?
What's going on, man? How you doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm still reeling. Harris got me licking my wounds. That
I
last
know I
caller
want
got
to
me
give you a
licking my
little bit,
wounds.
let that blood down a little bit.
He comes hard, man. He comes hard. But how did you
He
feel about
does.
it?
Oh man, he's well, actually, while you guys were talking, I decided to look up some stuff. That's the gallows because I
Oh,
didn't know
let me
about
know
that.
what you find. What you find? What did you find?
That is that's the makeshift gallows that they had January 6th. It's like a 2x4 on top of a couple 4x4s. I'm
Well,
not
yeah,
saying
he
anything.
said it
I'm
was
just
a
showing you
small.
what I see.
Yeah, he referred to it as a small version.
Right.
Okay.
So, and this is one thing that's
I
been
don't.
on my mind, and I want to see what you think, brother. See if I can show you. This is see those two white patches back there, the badges.
A little bit, yeah. What
Those
am I looking at?
are Capitol Police, and that is right before Ashley Babbitt was shot. Like they're right next
Okay.
to her.
I am aware that behind the Ashley Babbitt and the Trump protesters, there were police behind that. But there's no way to know if the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt could see what was going on behind him. All he saw was a broken. All we know for sure is he saw a broken window. He had people behind him cowering for their lives. He had a pistol aimed at the crowd, and Ashley Babbitt continued proceeding forward. Did he see the folks behind? I don't know. For all we know, he could have saw the guys behind the crowd and thought that the crowd was actually overtaking the folks behind, because despite what's behind the crowd, only thing between him and Ashley Babbitt and that crowd is the window. So those cops are actually behind them.
Right. No, it's just a video that has kind of bugged me since that whole thing. So, did you look into the misinformation bureau?
Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. I did look into that. That is a real issue. The Biden administration is definitely taking flack for that. I did look into that. I will just say this in regards to Biden using Homeland Security or whatever to literally create disinformation. They actually have a name for that in politics when they're trying to get out negative spiel on the opposing candidate. They all do it. Biden just happened to be dumb enough to give it a fucking name. I strongly have said and strongly believe, yeah, I mean, really, he just happened to be dumb enough to actually name the shit. But in reality, what is it?
Dude, I was even.
I mean, I'm
Yep.
thinking of the name. I know what it's actually called. I just, for some reason, can't say it. But they all have that. And like for instance, in my opinion, right after the election, in 2020, I believe Trump operated in that way in terms of getting out things in regards to the election was stolen, whether it was voting Dominion machines or it was ballot stuffing. I mean, they threw a bunch of things against the wall to see what would stick. And at this point, even though none of them have been proven definitively, some of those things they've dropped entirely. But I do believe that they all, to some degree, all politicians have a misinformation campaign.
Oh, absolutely.
So I
One
think
thing I
they're
do
pretty.
want you to pay attention to is May 22nd. The WHO is having a big vote. I'll just let you look into that. There's two others. Oh, the
I think
World
so.
Economic Forum is having their meeting.
Another guest talked
They begin
about
their
that in
meeting that
regards
day.
to. Yeah, I had another guest bring that up. So you're
That's
not the first
scary.
person to mention it.
It's
I gotta
scary.
look it up. I gotta look it up to see what the
hmm
validity of it is because I hear
It's
folks talking about New
194
World Order.
different countries, including the United States.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, I gotta look at
yeah.
and
Anyway,
let me just say,
you should.
Veronica, we were talking about 2,000 Mules. I do intend to watch 2,000 Mules. One of the guests earlier said it's only in theaters right now, but it will be available for streaming. I do expect to watch that. So I see Veronica Williams is talking about 2,000 Mules. In regards to what you're talking about with the WHO, the WHO, I have not heard it, but I'm willing to listen to it. But I've been hearing about New World Order forever.
Just look into the vote that's on May 22nd. It's about
Okay.
national sovereignty.
All right. Fair enough.
But
Fair
have
enough.
a good
I'll
night,
look it
brother.
up.
Just want to say hey.
Hey, anytime. Come on through once again. As always, we always talk. Never a problem, man. You have a good evening.
You too, sir.
All right.
Okay, let's go with one more here before we're gonna have to wrap it up soon. I got a couple more in here. Looks like Modern Colonizer, you've been waiting. Christopher, I do.
And the damage and everything else, they are just afraid of change. Everybody's afraid of change. Gamecock. I think when it comes to major change, every policy, whether it's some of the shit they got going on now or back in the day, interracial marriage or allowing same-sex marriages, every major change always comes with a lot of resistance. Modern Colonizer in the right apparel, already dressed in red. What's going on?
What's going on, man? It's good to see you.
You too. You as well.
I'm I don't know. So like with Harris, it's kind of the reason no, I'm not trying to sit here and beat up on him, but it's the reason the conservative lost me, right? It's because they always start out kind of good, but you give them the microphone too long, you're just like, ah, shit, man. You know what I mean? And what
Harris is a passionate individual. Harris really believes what he believes. He don't really necessarily tolerate dissent. So he's a passionate individual. Go ahead.
and I can appreciate that. And he was on a very, very good note where the reason even, you know, a lot of the GOP doesn't like Trump is he was stirring up their power grab, right? And that's what most of the government does not like about January 6th, right? And the thing is about January 6th that a lot of people's talking points, you know, they just go, hey, that was an insurrection, that was treason, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess what? I had to pull out this short for you, okay? Me and my
George
homie,
Washington. George Washington himself. Okay. What does that
me and
say
my
at the bottom there?
me and my homies would have been stacking bodies by now. All right? Okay?
Okay. Okay. That's deep. All right. Okay. I'm gonna let that go.
And, and, and like Chappelle said, the Second Amendment, in case the first doesn't work, right? They will not hear our, right? I mean,
Okay.
try to take your grievance to your congressman. You can write them a letter. In fact, people, that actually works. A voicemail does, you know, but letters, you usually do get a response, right? But they're still not going to take any action. But at least you can hold up a letter and say, look, I wrote my congressman. But the inability for us to take our grievances to our government has become a very, very big problem. And and whether or not you think the election was stolen, this, that, or the other, whatever grievance it is you have, try to take it to your government. Okay, the Civil Rights March, right? They marched on Washington. They did not go break down the doors of the Capitol, right? But look how
They would have been
hard
shot.
they had to go to get heard. You know what I
Well,
mean?
let me say this in regards, and I'm a fan of, like, for instance, your George Washington shirt about, look, if you don't adhere to your policies, we're going to do what it takes to upset government. I'm fine with that. Unfortunately, I believe that the folks acting in regards to Trump was doing it based on fictional information, though. If they were doing it based on a genuine wrong, they were genuinely wronged, I would be a lot more favorable of it. Whereas if Trump could produce some strong evidence that he was truly cheated and the politicians that be were totally ignoring him, I would be more in the camp of it. But right now, as we stand, there's just not enough evidence to support folks acting so angrily. At this point, it's all just what Trump said. If there was more proof of it actually happening, more definitive proof, not where facts may come out. And I'm not saying that under a future Trump administration, under a Republican administration after the midterms, there might be more stuff that comes out. But right now, it has not come out. And folks acted based on essentially nothing. They essentially acted on allegations. So that's where that's where they lose me at.
Fair enough, and I will agree with you there. My only real retort would be, when and where could you actually get factual information from our government this day and age? It's just not going to
Well,
happen.
if you're going to do what they did on January 6th, you need to have some facts. You can't just do that based on what you think or based on allegations. You need to have some facts, because as you can see, some of them have put their livelihoods and their freedoms at risk acting that way.
Right. Which to me, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Adams, they did the exact same thing. They put their freedoms on the line to change their government, to change the way that they are governed. And I'm not trying to make the two, right next to each other, okay? But what I'm getting at is, and Harris, man, I think your FBI agent might be a little busy tonight, man, typing a report on you. But it's more than just, I'm going to write something on Twitter. Here's my problem with America these days. People think they stand for something. I was driving on to a job the other day, and I saw someone had a Ukrainian flag up in their backyard, and I'm like, that'll stop the Russians. You know what I mean? Like, you made a tweet. You don't stand for something because you put a flag up. You stand for something by putting the boots on and getting to work. You know what I mean? And that's what I do have to respect about the January 6th. What term give them? I'm not going to give them. Go ahead.
Like I said, I'm fine with taking action against a tyrannical government, but I'm just simply saying, have something a little bit more solid than a mere allegation. Trump lost the election in November. He didn't leave power until January. In those 2 months that he still had after being president, not only did he not produce any sort of significant proof that the election was stolen, his entire party, the heads of his entire party, disagree with him that it's stolen at all. This is literally boiling down to the allegation of one man. The entire Republican Party, just about all of the senators and all of the Congress and all of the Republican governors, are speaking negatively of what he claims happened. They disagree. How many Republicans that actually served on the Trump administration since he lost that election have actually written books and gave interviews stating that this did not happen the way he's saying? These are not liberals. His own party members of his own administration, is saying this did not happen.
Correct. And all I'm saying is, my brownies are about ready.
Are those do them brownies contain any THC?
Kind of fun like that in a long time. But
okay, all right.
All I'm saying is, when we say drain the swamp, we don't mean just liberals only. You know what I mean? And these people that are in, listen, they've got us thinking we are so much different than each other and got us hating each other. 95% of liberals and conservatives and libertarians and all, you can't, without the damn hat on, you can't tell the difference between us, right? We go to the same bar, okay? We just want to do the same things with our lives for the most part. It's the crazy 5% that get the microphone. And I'm telling you right now, Democrats and conservatives in high office go to the same damn freaking, they don't even go to barbecues, whatever they call those elite parties. They go to the same mansion, go to the same parties together. And when you disrupt that, they're going to get upset, you know?
Well, and I agree with the notion that if you upset what they're doing, they're going to get up. They're not going to like it. And I said this before, when Trump came to power, suggesting that he was going to hold everybody accountable, he was going to name names. He essentially told the voting public, if you elect me, I'm going to go to Washington and be a snitch. Why would you not expect problems from that? You're going to go to Washington and you're going to snitch on the very people you need to enact your most prominent legislation. As president, you cannot do this alone. Trump, I say this all the time, Trump would function a lot better in a dictatorship than a democracy because you can't tell the people you need to do what you want to do. Can't talk down to people that can vote you out or can vote out your bills and make you an ineffective president. And Trump wants to be able to speak his mind and tell people whatever the hell he wants, but expects them to support him also. And it just doesn't work that way. That's not real life.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the rhetoric did a good job of stirring up a base, but the rhetoric got to the point where even people who voted for him, like me, were like, man, we kind of got an immature dude running the show right now. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I know what you mean. Hell yeah, I know what you mean. Because I've said before that I think the guy was an effective president, but the rhetoric killed him. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, and so I mean, at the end of the day, I think you know, to call January 6th, to call them insurrectionists or to call them treasonist or whatever, I think that is a very dangerous term. Okay, you might not have liked exactly how they went about it, but the idea that your fellow Americans were willing to put their liberty on the line, okay, I mean, that's important. All right.
What do you
And
call them?
all I'll say is
What do you refer
that's
to as what happened on January 6th? What do you refer to that as?
you know, I don't have the exact term for them, but like you say, if we actually had a little bit more substance and evidence, then I would call them patriots.
Okay,
Right.
fair enough.
But like,
Fair enough.
right, we don't, and then I'll just make an analogy. What if when we had the recount down in Florida, there was a bunch of people on the left who said absolutely not, and they kicked down the Capitol doors? What would we call them?
Probably would call them insurrectionists as well. And I got to give a shout out to Al Gore for being. I mean, you talk about when they go low, we go high. Al Gore made it clear he thought the election was stolen from him in 2000 as well, and he didn't take the same route as Trump. He just said, for the good of the country. These are his words. For the good of the country, he decided to just drop it.
I got to reply to somebody real quick. He said, check out this dude's eyes. He looks like Creepy Joe. Unlike Joe, I work for a living and I'm pretty damn tired. I do air conditioning. I've been at it since 5 a.m. Just got showered up and
Oh
on
my
here.
God.
You can cave.
the
Hey,
comments can
all right.
the comments can be real harsh, man. The comments can get to be real harsh.
Yeah. But, you know, I
Harris
mean,
Jordan, speaking in regards to Al Gore, said that Al Gore fought for a month in the courts. If Trump only fought for a month in the courts, I mean, really, if Trump only fought for a month in the courts, this would have won. I mean, this has been over a year, and he's still saying his stuff will still come out. He still is saying it's not over with yet. Not only is he saying I got cheated, but he's saying I'm still eventually going to continue you fighting this. So yeah, that's like night and day. And let me
and my
say something real quick also for you guys. Let me just say this real quick. For all of you guys asking me, am I going to watch 2000 Mules? it is as high on my list of something I want to see as it can get. I absolutely promise you, the minute I get access to that, whatever streaming service is on, I will watch that and probably end up doing a show about it. So yes, folks asking me about 2,000 Mules, I absolutely intend to watch that. I'm going to make time out the minute it's available. Go ahead, Colin Nelson.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I think people are too hard on the January 6th. Screw it, call them insurrection, right? Um, and beating a dead horse again. This idea that you stand for something just because you make a tweet or put a flag up or something like that is BS. And I think you need to compliment the fact that somebody was willing to stand up for your liberty, because there's the only thing stopping our government from actually owning us, okay, is just a few small, just like Harris was saying, they saw just how fragile their power is, right? And what they're willing to do to protect that should scare the hell out of you.
Well, let me say this, because you said folks should give them credit for being willing to stand up for our liberties. I think the problem is a lot of America thinks that they were standing up for something that never was in jeopardy. And I guess I would compare it to Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick thinks what he is doing is taking a stand for the liberties of African Americans. If you don't believe if you don't believe Colin Kaepernick's core message, and that is that blacks are being mistreated by police, for folks who don't believe that, for folks who believe the only reason blacks are having problems is because they're not abiding by the law, they're not going to give Colin Kaepernick credit for standing up for the liberty of anyone, because they believe he's standing up on an illegitimate cause. That is the way a lot of America views the folks on January 6th, as you say, standing up for liberty. They believe you're standing up for something that is not even a problem. They believe you're standing up for liberties that are not even in jeopardy. You're standing up for an illegitimate cause. Ryan Vasquez, appreciate the crown. Thank you. Go ahead.
Right. And then you've got people who aren't insane like me, who will say, I totally understand. Maybe not at the exact time. Maybe I was a little bit like, come on, bro, I just want to watch football, right? The same as when Bob Costas anti-gun rants after Sandy Hook, right? Sometimes you just want to watch football. If you're angry about that, like this is my escape, you're justified in that anger. But absolutely, if you're saying, hey man, you make $10 million a year, you got nothing to complain about. Hey, I can vouch for somebody else's grievances. I can fight for somebody else's grievances. I may not have to live them, but if I'm willing to stand up and fight for them, then who are you to tell me I can't? I totally respect
Let
Cap.
me
First,
let me say this. Go ahead.
I totally respect Cap taking that knee, probably now more than ever, because I don't think people respected how much he absolutely knew what he was putting on the line and did it. That's the difference. There's a lot of people who have no idea what they're risking when they go. He knew he was putting his career on the line. He would probably put his life on the line, in fact, to some real crazy bigots out there. So I respect Cap for that.
Okay. Well, before we wrap it up, and I appreciate those cones for us, Fire. Much love. I will say this in regards, because you mentioned folks who wanted to come and watch a game for their escapism, and they weren't coming there to see a protest. I'm coming to watch a game. I'm not coming for politics. That exact same argument could be made for folks who went out there to see the next president get inaugurated. I came here to see Biden sworn in. I did not come here to see you guys threatening to kill the VP, and I didn't come here for this. So that could be argued both ways. That's all I'm saying. I'll let you go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, no, hey, fair enough. I've never even been to DC and gone and seen all the Americana, and that would be a once in a lifetime experience. I'd be upset if that was ruined for me as well. So you make a great point there. So yeah, I just want to say, man, I always appreciate talking with you. You run a good show.
Absolutely.
We will see you on the next one, brother.
Absolutely. You are always welcome back. Somebody asked me real quick, and have a good evening, Modern Colonizer. Definitely in the program. Somebody asked, what was TikTok is constantly scrolling this shit. A lot of black folks, that ain't what I was
what were the people involved in the January 6th incident standing up for? That was from David, looks like Whitmore. They were standing up for a fair election. They genuinely believed that the election was held improperly. I made it clear I believe that was based on false information and mere allegations, but that's what they were standing up for. Somebody said a lot of black folks, this is from User, a lot of black folks that are true activists know what we are getting into, and it's not for crime. I don't get that. I don't get that statement. Colin was raised in a white family. Okay, Mark Henson 109. Just because you're raised in a white family does not mean you cannot fight for civil rights for black people. Shit, Barack Obama's mom is white. Does that mean he just say screw black people because he got white? Do you realize how many Caucasian people have participated in everything from getting slaves free to the civil rights act? Every movement that we've engaged in as African Americans, every movement for freedom has involved the help of a lot of Caucasians. And I use this in regards to liberals who say all white people this or all, like, you have to realize you would not be here if it wasn't for a lot of white people that were down for the cause. So being white should not affect your desire to give everyone civil rights. I guess that's the best way I will put that. I'm gonna have to wrap this up in a minute. We've been partying here for a minute. Many white individuals. Oh, Ryan Vassos again with the crown, showing your boy some love. And by the way, folks, thank you, Ryan, for that. By the way, folks, if you will tap the screen, send your boy out with at least 15,000. Real close. Tap the screen. Send your boy out with 15,000. When I say it's not for crime, folks, thing that Black Lives Matter is about crime, and it's not. User 6512, I will say this, and I've said this before, there's a difference between Black Lives Matter, the organization, and Black Lives Matter, the movement. Black Lives Matter, the organization, is corrupt as fuck. Black Lives Matter, the organization, I believe is necessary. I believe they are legitimate. But the organization started raising money, promoting fascism, and doing a lot of shit that was just outright corrupt and cashing in off of a movement that was not even collecting money to begin with. So that's the take on that. Partying. Yeah, PNW Glow, let me say something in regards to partying. Anytime I can look out and see a sea of red hats, it's a fucking party. I absolutely enjoy talking to MAGA. MAGA holds no punches. You see Harris, me and Harris chop it up all the time. Me and Harris don't agree on everything, but Harris gives it to me. And I show I can take it and dish it back. I really enjoy Harris. Harris is a welcome guest all the time. Some of you guys really agree with him. Some of you don't. That's what it's all about. So yes, it's been a fucking party, and welcome to it. Appreciate those who are following and working on it, sir. Says, yeah, I appreciate that. Working on those likes. Y'all got me up to 15,000. Holla at your boy. I got 5 more minutes. I'm going to get ready to wrap it up because I've been chopping it up with you guys for a minute. It's been a good night. It's been a real good night. I am MAGA, but do not think this is a party. It's a party, PN. This is how about this? How about this? This is a term you should be able to recognize if you don't think it's a party. We're having a love fest. How about that? We're having a love fest. And I got 5 more minutes. And after my 5 more minutes, I'm going to tell you this. I love you. Go home. No MAGA is a code. Oh, my God. Thanks for a safe place to discuss. Ryan Vassos, anytime. You are always welcome here. This is a no snowflake zone. I love my MAGA. Come on in here. Holla at your boy. Get your points across. Let's chop it up. Tell me where I got it wrong. Tell me to fuck off. That is fine. Absolutely. Like I said, the skin is thicker than an alligator covered in cement. That's what we do here. We talk. We get this shit out in the open. Your platform is a breath of fresh air. 383 Thor. Y'all sending me out feeling real big tonight. Got me up to, what is it, like 300 motherfuckers in here? Really? I may have to stick around for a minute. It's past my bedtime, but y'all on some points tonight. Shame on former U.S. President Trump for backing you. Backing who? Are you suggesting that Trump backed me? Really? Okay, 00777. Harris is such a cutie. Listen, I identify as heterosexual, so I don't know where the hell you're going with that. For you guys who are new to the program, 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, we always in here. We always get down. It's generally myself, the handsome liberal, regardless of what the fuck you think of me. And I prefer talking to MAGA. So it's a sea of red hats. It's like the Cincinnati Reds are winning the championship. Red hats every fucking where. I love it. The gas prices suck. What does I say? Drum, something like that. I blame Biden for the gas prices. They were not like this under Trump. He can make excuses. He can blame Putin, but at the end of the day, I always say what happens under your watch, you're responsible for. Laugh out loud. You want devil worshiper? Oh my lord, Thomas Visit. What the hell are you talking about? Shame on former U.S. President Trump for backing and praising dictator Putin. Mike Stickman 38. You know what? You raise a good point, and I'm not a fan. I've made it clear. Even some of the MAGA folks, I've made it clear that Trump saying positive things about Vladimir Putin while he is actively committing war crimes is not in Trump's best interest. And I will say this to a lot of liberals that are at odds for Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and potentially having Trump come back. For liberals who don't like that, I say it all the time. Do you want America to just continue focusing on the fuck ups of Biden? If Trump gets back on Twitter, he might actually create a diversion that would help Biden out. I strongly believe that. Let him get on Twitter, keep talking about how great Putin is, while we got children and women being bombed in Ukraine. Let him talk about biolabs and Nazis and all. If you are a liberal and you want another liberal, you don't want Trump back in office, you should be fucking begging that they put him back on Twitter. Because right now he's doing exactly what Biden did in 2019, where folks were saying that, I got some breaking news. I don't know what it was. Something breaking just came through. Political, by the way. But anyway, just like folks were saying that Biden is hiding in his basement. No, he wasn't hiding in his basement. He was allowing Trump to continue fucking up before the 2020 election. By taking Trump off of Twitter, you essentially have forced him to hide in his basement. Let him out. Let him speak. He says a lot of controversial shit. With Biden fucking up the way he's fucking up, you should want that out. So I would say the liberals should be begging. They should be taunting Trump and teasing him, hoping that he gets back on some major platform that is stronger than that fucking Truth Network. That's not doing it. That Truth Social. No, you want him on Twitter. You want him on Facebook. If I was Nancy Pelosi, I would be on the phone with Zuckerberg making deals behind the scenes. I need you to get that fucker back out here. That's what I would be telling if I was Nancy Pelosi, because our guy looks like shit right now. Get this dude back on social media so we can start ridiculing him again. Otherwise, it's just Biden all day, and it's not looking good, folks. Look, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up as usual. As always, I love this fucking audience. You guys going to send me off with 200 people. Damn. I really hate to go this way, but you guys have been on point today. Rolling with your boy, 10 o'clock tonight. Like I said, share the channel. We do this every night, 7 p.m. Yep, allow him on, says Ryan Vest. Yeah, I want him president, says Mark Henson 109. If Biden keeps fucking up, you may get him president. Breaking news, MAGA is maggots. You never disappoint. Do you think the United States should provide oil to American people before selling to the world market? Let me focus on this sign right here over my left shoulder. Do you see this sign right here? It says America First. America First. So the answer to your question is emphatically yes. Let's get it. Says Trump and Trumpism is dead. And that came from Fletcher or something. No, it's not. Trumpism is not dead. It is alive and well. And Biden is planting seeds and fertilizer on it, helping it grow. Hunter is in the basement now. Hunter needs to stay his ass in the basement. Why don't you send a crack pipe down there? Maybe they'll keep him occupied. Just like Harry. What was the movie documentary name again? 2,000 Mules? Supposedly it's going to show things from a right-wing perspective, that fraud in the election and things like that. I want to see where it goes. I don't want to necessarily state what I think the plot is. This is kind of from what I've heard, but I haven't read up on it yet. But I'm definitely eager to watch it. Had a lot of participants on the channel have been talking about it. Let Trump talk about a lot of shit he can't prove. And that came from T-Mac. Yeah, absolutely. You want him on Twitter. You want him saying controversial shit. Get him out there. Trump Speaker of the House in 2022. That'll absolutely never happen. Roe versus Wade. It's probably dead. P and W Glow is probably at least in the right wing states, but federally. Now, some of you guys are saying it's going to go through SCOTUS, so it actually may be dead nationally. Oh my God, I cannot imagine how bad that's going to turn out. My guess is if they ultimately overturn Roe v. Wade, it'll be like the war on drugs. They'll get what they want, and within a generation or two, they'll be like, this is some bullshit. We need to do something about this. This is not going well. You talk about, because keep in mind, most women getting abortions are from the bottom end of the socio-economical scale. A lot of them are minorities. There's like, what is it, 500,000 to 750,000 abortions in America every year. If you ban that, you could be creating probably about 500,000 of at least about 600,000 fucking liberals every year. I do believe within a generation, with all of these minorities and all these liberals being forced to come to term, they go, oh, we need to really rethink what we don't fucking did. I really believe that. Not to mention, considering the fact that most women getting abortions are poor and on the lower end of the scale, they're also going to be applying for entitlements. And these are all things that Republicans do not like. They want to protect the sanctity of life, but once that child is created, they do not like all of the other shit that comes after it. And there's no way you can get one without the other. Once you start forcing all of these impoverished single moms to have these babies and make these babies come to term, they're going to go down to their local offices and be applying for welfare and food stamps and shit. All the shit you trying to get rid of. It's going to look horrible. I'd say give it a generation or so, and the same folks that are for this will be against it. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. I have got to go. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. I'm out of here.